This is Philip Roy playing the Doctor.
And I'm Mandy Rose and I play Jenny.
For the Doctor Who fan film, Doctor Who Meets the Scorpion, this is the Type 40 podcast.
Yes, it's time once again for Type 40 Live, materialising here in all our glory. It's the live stream Doctor Who magazine show across your view screen in real time on Rumble, X, YouTube and on Facebook too. As ever, we're in front of a live chat full of friends, fans and companions, just like you. The weekend's in sight, everybody. Maybe it's here. Maybe it's been and gone for you. We make evergreen content here at Type 40 Live. I'd like to think we do. And if you're sailing out there across the various time streams and continuums, you'll find there's something to ramble about with and rattle around with us. No wrong answers, days or times here at Type 40 Live.
Welcome to Type 40.
Yes, here we are again talking all things Doctor Who as we approach the halfway mark of an entire season of all new Doctor Who. So long getting here and now so deep into it already. Hello. So yes, I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's king of the geeks. We'll find out who you are in a couple of minutes before we get deep into everything that's been going on in Doctor Who. My God, it's been overwrought, hasn't it? Yes, lots of people sort of gritting their teeth and shuffling through graphs and looking at stats and all sorts of things. We're going to do plenty of that later on. Don't you worry about that. And if you're there in the Facebook group, don't forget you've got to hit the little blue link. Then Facebook tells StreamYard who you are and StreamYard will tell us and we'll get on first name terms, won't we, to huddle round the console like the Doctor Who legends. Where are we going this time? Throughout the 61 years of Doctor Who? Well, I thought we'd go here. Yeah, that's nice and cozy, isn't it? Yeah, we can blow off some steam, some steampunk, and get to the bottom of all these issues that are dominating the Whoniverse this week. Of course, it's the 28th anniversary of the TV movie, so we've got some up-close details of the wonderfully analogue Eighth Doctor's console there. I never tire of looking at this. But of course, we don't really get to see it in that much detail in the TV movie. So feast your eyes on this little lot. What do you make of this, Simon Horton?
You know, I love this. I absolutely love the Paul McGann console. And it's still out there. We know it's still out there. It still exists. And it was saved and pulled off the... Literally, I think it was virtually pretty much pulled off the scrap heap.
Yeah.
So it is still there and it's been lovingly restored. And yeah, I absolutely love it.
Refurbished. Speaking of being lovingly restored, how are you this week?
I'm good. And so's little Lenny. Lenny's in the building at the moment. I'm not sure how long he will stay here. So he's going to say hello now. Say hello, Lenny. Say hello to everybody. There we go.
Hi, Lenny.
Lenny. So yeah, he'll disappear soon to go and have his tea. But yeah, I'm good. I'm all good. I'm always good. Generally, I'm always good. I think.
Good stuff. Yes, I thought because we're in the heat of this brand new season of Doctor Who, that's a co-production with a major American studio, it seems apt to give this a bit of a nod, really, because this was the original sort of co-production, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and I still think this was. Everybody knows that I love the white console room, the old white console room with the roundels. But I do think the whole McGann TARDIS was a beautiful, beautiful version. And I still think it was probably the pinnacle, in all honesty. That the 2005 series onwards has always tried to sort of replicate this, I think, this look, and it's never quite worked. It's very distinct, but they've always kind of gone for the sort of vague steampunk look in the post 2005 series. And I just don't think they've ever quite got it right. Certainly never as good as this in my mind. It's perfection. Beautiful.
I'm always surprised.
Very Jules Verne.
That's it. And I'm always surprised when you see it up close like that, quite how small the detail is. You know, it's not flashy at all. No. As I say, very, very, very analog. You can imagine. Hard. Yeah. And you need a good load of Mr. Sheen to sort of tell how as well.
You certainly would. You created a hole in the ozone layer with trying to polish that console.
Now, we haven't got Mr. Sheen with us this time, sadly, but we do have a bit of a fandom legend. I don't know if he's known for cleaning up anything. In fact, judging by past experience, by the time we wrap up, we could all be in fits of laughter here and saying almost the most unspeakable things. Welcome back, Adam Charlton, otherwise known as the Geek's Handbag.
You're on mute, mate. It was going so well. Don't worry, we'll cut it out in the edit.
How's that?
Yeah, there he is.
So this is the first. You sound like you're under cotton wool.
Yeah, I feel like
this. This is the first time that Adam's joining us from Great Britain as well. Usually you're overseas, aren't you?
Yes, I'm back in the good old UK, back in good old Blighty, and back to my comfort of having my Doctor Who stuff around me. That's why I'm smiling, because I just love having all my stuff around me. I always miss it when I'm in the US. So, yeah.
Back to your TARDIS. Would you fancy polishing this lot up?
Yeah, definitely. I love the McGann TARDIS. I agree with Simon. I think it's beautiful. I think the interior is great, and I also love the exterior in the TV movie because it's really chunky. It's such a good. I think both are gorgeous, but this TARDIS console, yeah, I've got a picture of me and McGann around that console.
Really?
I'm assuming it's the original, unless someone made a really good replica
This is definitely the original here, and I think the one that does the circuit is probably the same as well.
Yeah, so yeah, I love
it's the same one. Fabulous stuff. And who else have we got bringing them all in one by one? We have with us too another fandom legend as well, but I wouldn't dream of asking her to polish anything that could come across as being sexist, couldn't it, Charlotte Shields?
Oh, you've got away with so much. Why not that?
Yeah, I get away with murder on this show, don't I?
You really do. Hello.
It's amazing what you can say with a smile and a kind word. How are you this week, Charlotte?
Well, I'm coming up to a break soon, which will be good for me. I know half term's coming up, so I'm sort of counting down the days, which I shouldn't be, but I am a little bit, so that'd be nice.
Tick tock. Every few months we like to drop a bit of a nod, tip the cap, so to speak, to the TV movie. Just that one night. You know, it was at the time in the summer of 1996. Obviously, we had high-ish hopes, didn't we? And we didn't really know what a co-production was then. We read about it in Doctor Who magazine and Starburst and things like that, but it seemed so distant from us somehow. And of course, it didn't work out. It was the BBC and Universal Television that time, Charlotte, and Universal, they aired it on the Fox network. It simply didn't get the numbers, get the ratings that they wanted. My God, we're going to come to that as well later on. But what do you think about it with all these years of hindsight? Was it perhaps more prescient than we're aware, just like Simon says?
I think certain ideas have sort of had their effects long after. I think when I look at the Doctor Companion, how that was done, I can definitely see what the modern series took from the movie. That sort of slightly more sort of emotional. Obviously, it's the hint of romance, which we've seen plenty in modern Who. Sort of that idea of the companion being a bit more closer, almost, in ways to the Doctor that they hadn't been in the classic. You had best mates in classic, but you didn't get anything beyond that, really, I would argue. So, and I also think a lot of McGann's Doctor, I think there's two things that sort of have made a legacy. It's that TARDIS, like you said, and McGann's interpretation. And it's incredible considering he was a one-shot Doctor, but so much of his traits, I feel like you see loads now in Doctors.
They've definitely bled through, haven't they, to the new era, to the 21st century Doctors.
Yeah.
You know what? I hadn't realised, though, Charlotte, until I saw this picture. I mean, I know that sometimes actors are shorter in real life than you think they're going to be. But Paul McGann, he's a really little bloke, isn't he, there in that picture?
I think it's a costume. I don't know what it is about that costume. It just makes him look more dainty than he actually is. Maybe because it's that sort of old style, very deliberate sort of, you said. Could also be. Once again, sort of the inspiration is very dandy, isn't it? That costume, it's very Victorian.
Yeah, and when he's striding around this as well, Adam.
Oh, love it.
Or sinking into that armchair to read a book.
Yeah, I love that scene, actually, of the Seventh Doctor before he gets gunned down, when he's actually sat, with his cup of tea in that room. It's lovely. It looks so cozy.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I've often wondered what was in those drawers. I mean, we know there was gold dust in some of them. But
it's still tragic, isn't it, that we just didn't get to see more of that TARDIS? Because you can just see from here. I mean, there's even a conservatory at the back there, and we obviously would have seen so much of this console room if it had gone to series. We'd have seen so much of it, and it's just gutting to think that it would all have been torn down and thrown in the bin, and we never saw it. And I still I still look at it now, and I still wonder, why do they not just recreate that TARDIS now? There's no reason why you couldn't bring that one back, because little of it would be. I suppose
Capaldi's, it was kind of similar. We've got furniture and stuff dotted around, and its influence definitely.
It just
but if you look at the little details and the shape of it, its influence definitely survives to this day, particularly with the central column there. It's just with the lights are right the way back up, aren't they? Warriors of the Deep style. We're in the bright white there.
It just looks so boring in comparison. That is, when you put those two side by side like that, it just looks to me so boring, so dull, so uninspiring.
Yeah. We're back to business as usual, complaining about the current console, everybody. There'll be lots more of that coming up too, as well as our usual blend of news, views, nostalgia, more banter and dad jokes, fan art, and everything in between. If fortune smiles upon us, of course, we'll get some answers from you too. They're in the live chat across X, Rumble, YouTube, and on Facebook too. We want all those comments about everything that we're going to get stuck into this time.
I'm Leela, over 70, and you should watch Type 40.
Yes, so it's new series season, everybody. We've had 3 already. Adam, a 4th one is just, well, depending on when you watch it, really, 36-ish, 48 hours away. How are you finding it so far?
What the series or watching it on the iPlayer?
The series itself and the kind of the circus around it, because the culture's sort of moved on, and yet in some ways it feels like business as usual, doesn't it?
Yeah, I must admit the series got off to a very, very bumpy start. I was actually, my jaw was on the floor when I found out. I was watching the live stream and you were saying you enjoyed Space Babies. I was really shocked because I thought it was probably one of the worst Doctor Who episodes ever. I
agree with you, Adam. I thought it was the worst.
Well, we have got a review of that coming up, Adam, so you better steel yourself for that. You're going to love that when we put that podcast out.
I didn't mind Devil's Cord as much, and I thought Boom was more Doctor Who-ish, but nothing's really grabbing me down. I have to be honest. I'm quite looking forward to this week's because it looks like a very mysterious, slightly different episode. So I'm trying to go into it with low expectations, but I'm hoping this week will be better. So it's a bit of a bumpy start for me. It started very badly with Space Babies. I didn't mind Devil's Cord because I quite like music. I play the piano, so that appealed to me. Boom, I thought was a good episode, but mostly because the first 2 weren't so good, it felt better than it was, if that makes sense. I just felt like, it's a good episode, but I don't think it was anything outstanding. But yeah, so it's a bit of a rocky road so far. I'm not hating it. I didn't like Space Babies, but I'm not hating it, but I'm not loving it either, if I'm honest.
You know what I'm saying, though, because Doctor Who spends so much time now away from our screens, doesn't it, Charlotte? And we talk about it endlessly for hours and hours on these shows. And then it comes back on. And you sort of forget what it's like, the momentum of the conversation around it when it's actually airing.
Yeah, and as we've talked about quite a bit, we had another big gap, really, between the last era ending and Russell's actually getting on screen. Of course, we had the Christmas special, but then after that, it was like crickets, and there was hardly any news, and like they weren't doing a lot of press. They were hiding, it felt like, almost. And then all at once, they started to do press, and a good lot of it was absolutely terrible. And like, what are you playing at? And then the series came back, and now, like you've said, I feel like we're just starting to get used to it, and we're in the midpoint because we've only got 8 episodes. So that's so I feel like these gaps now are going to hurt it because of the way we get a flush of episodes, then nothing, then a flush of episodes, then nothing.
It's funny you should say that, because I doubt that you were any less surprised than I was to see the news that the last 2 episodes of the new series are already sort of being promoted. And the series only started a fortnight ago, but yesterday we had this news that the finale will be in some cinemas on Friday, the 21st of June, starting at 11 p.m. with episode 7. That's The Legend of Ruby Sunday. And then the finale will be on at midnight. That's episode 8, The Empire of Death. And you can pre-book these tickets from the 23rd of May at 9 a.m. So, yeah, they're up right now. There's a link in the description to the video. But, yeah, this is at selected venues, those sort of smaller cinemas up and down the country, I would imagine. This does seem... It's not an unprecedented move, is it, Simon? They've done this before, but this really came out of left field.
Yeah, well, they've done it lots and lots of times before. But this just feels, I think this will absolutely backfire on them. I genuinely don't think any cinemas need to start ordering in extra popcorn for this particular event. I don't think there's, I look forward to being proven wrong. I genuinely don't think there's going to be a rush for tickets for these. Given the viewing figures, which obviously we'll come to in a bit, there just is so little appetite for Doctor Who at the moment. The only people that will be going to this will be fans, hardcore fans, whereas back in the day, certainly when you look at things like the 50th anniversary screening, there wasn't just fans in the audience there. There was just, the public were there.
The multiplexes were packed out with people. Literally packed
in massive screens and absolutely bursting at the seams with people. And as I say, that was the general public that was going to see it, not just the fans. And at 11 o'clock at night. So it's going to finish at 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, are you kidding?
I'm afraid so.
It's not going to happen.
So you don't fancy maybe we could get together, Simon, or pile in a car. We could take Lenny. We can all do.
You are very, very welcome. Anyway, look what I've got handy here. I'm well prepared tonight because I've got my bunch of grass. Because I am now pretty much officially out. I keep it handy now, this bunch of grass, and I have to be honest, I'm very grateful to Shooty. Thank you, Shooty, because he showed me the way. He told me what to do. He said if I didn't like it, all I had to do was touch grass. So I keep it handy because if the urge ever comes across me to watch Shooty's version of Doctor Who again, I just reach out and I touch the grass and I'm happy again. Thank you, Shooty. You're a very kind man.
Simon, it's become your therapy grass.
It is my therapy grass, Charlotte. It is. I love touch. And do you know what? Shooty does have a point. Everybody should touch more grass. It is actually really therapeutic.
I agree. Look, from touching grass, though, to touching base, I think it's time we checked in with everybody in the live chat across YouTube, Rumble, Xbook, YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. What's Xbook? What is an Xbook?
I was saying there's an Xbox, Dan, but that's gaming. You don't know what that is.
Let us know in the comments. No, I don't know anything about that. Yeah, let's go and check in with the comments. We've got hundreds of them already. Let's go and see what they've got to say about all of this nonsense.
I need a big dance number. That's what I'm going to put into the universe. I need the Doctor to have a big, fierce dance routine that, destroys a monster with twerking. Or maybe some death drops. And that's what will drop the monster.
Still amuses me.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound any better, does it? No matter how many
It
times you
gets
hear it.
no better. It gets
But at
no
least
better.
it's funny. At least it's
Yeah.
funny when he says it.
Fabulous stuff. Yeah, we have comments as well. We've got Lord Thoth in the live chat with his
Hello,
hi,
Lord.
everyone. Blimey, this is early doors. And we've got Cinnamon Toast Crunch CTC who's
Hello.
darting in and popping out and popping back.
Cinnamon.
Oh, I say, this is.
Can't yeah, I'm not sure quite what he means,
Yeah, move
but
on.
yeah, he'll be back in time, I bet. Greetings, fellow Who fans, says Rob Alexander. How's your Thursday going? Well, it's nearly spent, Rob, but this is the best way to sort of see it out, isn't it? With everybody here at Type 40 Live. Thank you for being here, Rob. Hello, all, says Sam Charlotte. I do like it when people come up with the simple names.
Yeah, we have some very polite people in the chat.
Psychic Beats is in too, as is Rose Kirby. Rose K. I'm going to start calling you Rose. Good to see you as well. Peter Harrington's in as well. The algorithm going to get you. Or was that Gloria Estefan? Gloria Estefan could get me any day, and she still looks pretty good now. Yeah, I like it.
Down, boy.
Garbage is in too. Hello,
Hello,
chat.
Garbage.
Hello,
Hello,
garbage.
panel. We've got a comment from Richard Brooks, which I'm not even. I don't understand this comment, Richard. I think he's been at the pub already, but I'm not going to even try to read this out. But yeah, bottoms up, Richard, is all I can really say to that one.
I'm trying to find the comment now. I can't see what it could be.
Dr. Wu, TM Boob, Gammon, Gatwa. Yeah. I think I get the general gist of it. Yeah, we'll come to that later on. Simon Ashley says, evening all. And John Jordan's in the live chat too and says, hello, everyone.
Hello, John.
We've got Matthew Butterfield in as well.
Hello, Matthew.
Hello.
Oh, and he's back. CTC's back. That's the
quick.
beauty of time travel.
He popped back in.
In seconds.
There
Back
you
for round two. Connor's here as well with Evening All. Hello, Connor. That's a new name. New name and new icon. And we've got the time scales with a lot of emojis there. Those are notes. I think that signifies happiness with the Type 40 Live theme tune there. Fly Highlands in too. Salutations. Neville Watkins is in as well. And we have Melanie Weston Investigates. Hi, everyone. What are you investigating, Melanie? That's what we need to know, I think.
The viewing figures, probably.
we're all investigating those. Hello, all. And I say, Harry, I'm standing on the landmine, says Michael Q. Oh, I see what you're doing there. Hi, Michael. Happy to have you back as well. Hi, says Atherton55. Hi, Atherton. And Ashvin's in as well. So, Ashvin, I think we spoke earlier on Twitter as well. Twitter/X, as it's now called. I do call it X most of the time, but now and again I slip back a groove in time, Simon, and start calling it Twitter again. But hello, Ashvin. Happy to have you with us.
I never call it X.
I don't know what
You
any
stick
of you
with-
are talking about. I just
You
don't.
stick with Twitter. You're probably better off, actually, Simon. Isn't it, Adam?
He is. Yeah. You
Me
don't,
and you,
yeah,
Simon, we don't need it, do we?
Certainly not.
Don't take it to extremes. Yeah. Heretic asks, does anyone else think it's insane we are having a Doctor Light episode when there are only 8 episodes?
Are we having a Doctor
This is
Light
the
episode? I didn't know we were.
We are
This is the
this week.
first. This is the first I've heard of it, Adam. Is this something you've heard about too?
Yeah, this week's episode, 73 Yards, is apparently a Doctor Light episode. So Rube is going to be carrying the bulk of this episode. Apparently. I mean, we don't know till we see it, but that's what we're led to believe.
But in
So
the
I-
trailer, it gives you that impression. If
Really?
nothing else.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because
we
obviously
know
some episodes of Doctor Who can be led by the companion. That's been commonplace, particularly in the new series. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're Doctor Light, does it? So is this just an example of the fandom putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 7?
Quite possibly. I don't know. I think this is an episode we don't know much about. Russell's sort of not given too much away about this episode, so we could be in for anything. But yeah, it could be a case of fans watching the trailer and assuming that. I don't know.
Yeah, let us know if this has been disclosed somewhere, because I haven't actually seen it. Fresh trim Dan. Not yet, but we can probably trim up Simon's grass there for him if that starts to get a bit longer.
How rude!
I was going. That sounds like a euphemism.
It does, doesn't it? I think let's move on. Really.
That's Lenny likes the grass.
Hello, Simon from Michael Q.
Harry's standing on the landline. Harry.
Yet again. And Svila Betkins in as well. This is the rabbi from another planet. He says he loves the McGann console that we were looking at earlier on. I don't think I know anybody who doesn't love the McGann console or TARDIS, Adam. It's very popular for a one-night thing, isn't it?
Yeah, you'd have to be out of your Vulcan mind not to like that console.
You do wonder, is there anybody in the chat that doesn't like it? Come on, tell us. Is anybody out there that doesn't like it?
Yeah,
Lenny, stop licking.
The rabbi expands on this. Simon is 100% correct about the McGann console. A 4K 1996 movie available from a fan upscaling project, and it's awesome with lots of exclamation marks. I think we can safely say he likes it. He's in with that. Hi everyone, says Tony L. And Gary Akers, the Retro Doc's here too. And says they'll fix it in post. I think that's we fix everything in post here. We use. Yeah, we skip the time continuums and sort it all out eventually, even if you don't notice. We've got a hi, everybody, from Stephen Braddock and Ezra Goldstein's in as well. Shalom to you, Charlotte.
Hello, Ezra, if I've said your name right.
Matthew Pounder, sorry, used to love Starburst. Now, do you mean the magazine or the sweets that replaced Opal Fruits, Matthew?
I'm reckoning Matthew means Starburst, the magazine. I loved Starburst, Matthew. Oh, I know it's still out there. You can still buy it, but it ain't what it used to be.
And Marie Claire from Marie Claire's World is in with her evening. Good. Is it Marie or Mary? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Marie Claire. Oh, it's Mary.
It's Mary. It's Mary, not Marie. Good stuff.
I love your prisoner videos, Mary Claire. Absolutely loving those.
Oh, she's doing The Prisoner now as well.
Watching The Prisoner, yeah, great series.
I'll have to get on those, definitely. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for your company and your comments so far. There's a lot more to get into, so please keep them coming. We've got lots of nonsense to talk, as always. Now and again, there may be the odd gem of wisdom worth polishing, so we'll do it together. We'll get there. We'll get there somehow, won't we? And seeing as it's a bit of a Paul McGann theme so far.
You're watching Type 40.
You're going to like this one, Simon. So a listing for Empire of Death has been updated on the old IMDb site there with a very, very curious addition to the season finale. So this is, if you go over to the app there and scroll down, you see the people you'd usually expect to see. There's Gemma Redgrave and Yasmin Finney, Ncuti Gatwa, but who's that in the middle? It's only Sean Pertwee, who they've got down. I know. That's exactly what I said. They've got Sean Pertwee down, not only as a cast member, but as playing the Third Doctor as well. Have you seen this?
No, surely not. Is that a massive, massive leak or what?
It's either a leak or it's some little munchkin playing a very, very silly game, Adam. What do you think it is?
I think it's a munchkin, but I'd like... I don't know. In a way, I'd like it to be true, but in a way, I wouldn't, because I don't really... I think, like, the Doctors that are dead, although I think David Bradley, I do like him as the First Doctor, but he's not William Hartnell. And
no.
I mean, Sean, obviously, he can be like his dad. I've seen him dressed as the Third Doctor, and I think he could totally be the Third Doctor, but I don't think it's necessary somehow. I don't know. It depends how it works out. But I think Munchkin, mate. I'm not sure I believe it. I don't think they'd let that slip, would they?
No, I don't. I see. This is it. I mean, nothing's impossible in Doctor Who now. Sean Carl Roland Pertwee, a 59-year-old English actor and producer. He's got an extensive set of credits to his name from the 1980s right up to now. So he's best known probably for the films Dog Soldiers and Event Horizon. And he played Inspector Lestrade in CBS's Elementary show, didn't he? And then he played Alfred Pennyworth for several years on Fox's Gotham show, which was about the young Batman. So it's quite a career that Sean's got behind him. But to us, Charlotte, he's obviously going to be best known as John Pertwee's son, isn't he? We've been looking at pictures of him with his father. We've been watching him grow up. I've been watching him grow up all my life, really. So what do you think about this one, Charlotte? Do you think it's likely? Do you think it's credible? Or do you think it's a munchkin as well?
I just find it a bit of a coincidence. And this is why I think it could be somebody having a laugh. if there's one Doctor Shooty is clearly shown, he has a liking towards or an affection or like one he's really particularly taken with, it's the Third Doctor. In his interviews, he has mentioned the Third Doctor quite a few times. So I just find it funny that the one Doctor Shooty seems to like is now suddenly could be appearing in his episode. So I don't know if it could be a fan seeing those interviews and sort of having a bit of a laugh and a bit of fun. Because like I said, it just feels a bit coincidental to me.
It's strange, I think, that an actor of some note, Simon, like Sean Pertwee, in his own right, long career, I've been watching him in things since the late 80s, that this actor hasn't turned up in Doctor Who yet, when Doctor Who's been back for nearly 20 years, does seem a little curious, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. What did you say his full name was again, Dan? I didn't...
Sean Carl Rowland Pertwee.
Okay, that's interesting. Right. We'll come back to that one in a little while, but for reasons that become apparent. But yeah, I mean, the problem I've still got with this is, bless him, Sean just doesn't look that much like his dad to me. I just can't really. I can see a vague likeness, but if he was to suddenly, for a start off, they're going to have to put a wig on him, which is just going to look utterly ridiculous. I just can't see it working. You say ridiculous, but he's done it before. This was a photograph that Sean himself took. Really? When was this from? Is that
several years ago?
It looks at a CGI. The hair looks CGI.
Could be. But he has posed in his father's clothes before.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like him though. That's the thing, because I mean, John Pertwee had a very distinctive voice, and I know it might sound obvious because it's his son, but does he actually sound like John
Not
Pertwee?
really. I don't think so, Adam. To be honest, he's got a much deeper and a much more gravelly voice.
Yeah,
I was
going to say, like, Sean sounds like more of a London Cockney, like that sort of London voice, whereas his dad was a lot more polished. So unless. And here's the other thing. I think you talked about it with what they did with Twice Upon a Time. I agree. I think the performance of the actual actor was brilliant. I couldn't stand what Moffat wrote for the First Doctor in that episode.
I agree.
They deliberately put lines in there that were out of context. That was sort of, let's make the First Doctor out to be sexist and something. To me, that's what it came across. Maybe that was the intent, but to me, it came across as let's almost make the First Doctor look bad.
And the problem is, Charlotte,
I don't want that with
exactly. What worries me about that, you could be onto something there, because what really worries me is the fact that Shooty has called John Pertwee's Doctor a tart, which still really, really rankles with me. I'm sorry, John Pertwee is on a far, far higher plane than you are, and you can't go around calling other people tarts. So that worries me, because what happens if this is true and Sean Pertwee does appear as his dad, are they just going to make fun of him and just make out that he's a tart? It's very worrying. I actually pray it's wrong, to be honest.
My position with it, generally speaking, is that Sean Pertwee is likely to turn up in Doctor Who at some point, but where I'm more inclined to vote Munchkin Adam is the idea that he'll be playing the Third Doctor. They did ask him to be in the show before, back in, so this was 2015, and Sean Pertwee was quoted as saying, I've been asked before. I was actually asked last season, so that was for series 9. I couldn't do it because of Gotham. I'd love to be in some capacity be involved as an ode to my father and to Roger Delgado, who was my dad's best friend, who was the master. It'd be an honour to be involved in something like that. It's a big thing. So this is somebody who is very, very open to this idea, not only because I think it's playful and respectful, but it's going to look good on the old CV as well, isn't it? It just seems right that a Pertwee be back on Doctor Who when Doctor Who is a big international success, ideally, he says. with his tongue in cheek. But because Sean Pertwee's a known actor, Gotham ran for several years. This is a man with a career, so you could see why he'd be open to doing it, and you can see why they'd want him. I just can't see him as the Third Doctor somehow.
But interestingly, Dan, just looking at that photo there, can't you see him as the Doctor? Forget the third.
I can.
You look at that and you kind of think, wow, we were actually done out of a cracking Doctor with Sean Pertwee. It could still happen, but you just can't help thinking that somebody like Sean Pertwee would have been far more suited to bring the series back with a bang. Because for a start off, he's got the gravitas that I've always said so many times that the role needs, and Gatwa, I don't feel, has.
Following Sean Pertwee's career, over the years, as I have, I remember when he used to play like ruffians in Michael Winner movies, little Cockney criminals and things like that. And I always felt that he had a lot of what Christopher Eccleston had. So he's got that sort of earthiness. He can do that sort of hard man routine, but he's also got a natural eccentricity as well, which I believe that Chris Eccleston struggled to reach. I think it comes more naturally to somebody like Sean Pertwee. So I've never quite lost the idea that one day he may be cast as the Doctor, or at the very least, I'd love to see him. Never, I think Kate Lethbridge-Stewart may have had her day. How about Sean Pertwee playing a new brigadier, a new commanding officer at unit? That could be pretty good. Dog Soldier style. What do you think?
Yeah, I like that.
I like the sound of that. Yeah. He's got a lot of character in his face, hasn't he, Sean Pertwee? I think that's the thing. When you talk about gravitas, he's got a very, like John Pertwee had, a very expressionate face, very authoritative face. He would be. That would be good shout, that Dan.
Yeah, and he brought, because I watched a bit of Gotham, and I watched obviously his Alfred, and it was actually nice to see an Alfred that had a bit more of a soldier energy to them, a bit more of a commanding officer energy. The fact that he would sort of come in, say a scene, and then exit, and it was very much like, okay, I'm not going to mess with you. And that's not what you usually think about when you think of Alfred. So it was a nice sort of energy he brought to that role. So I would really love, now you've said that, bring him in as something to do with unit. I think that would work really well.
Playing a guy similar to the bloke he played in Dog Soldiers, just not quite so, with a little less swearing. Although in current Doctor Who, I wouldn't rule it out. Tony L says, I think maybe Sean will play the Third Doctor in voice only, or he may be the villain of the series. He does the narration for MasterChef as well, which is ace. I didn't know that. A friend of mine's been on MasterChef. I didn't know that either.
I thought it was a woman that did that. I think it was
India Fisher used to do it, who plays Charlie in the audios, but maybe they do. Maybe it's the international version. I don't know.
Maybe.
Could be.
You have made me sorry.
Go on, sorry, Adam.
You have made me think, Dan, when you said that about maybe he's in it, but not the Third Doctor. Maybe he is in it, but the Third Doctor on IMDb is a bit of a red herring, to sort of throw us off. So maybe he's in it as someone else, possibly.
Could be. Anything but the Doctor, says Lord Thoth. CTC, also a fan of the film Event Horizon. That's got Sam Neill in it. Came out about 97, 98. Fabulous film. I can't remember who Sean Pertwee plays in that, but he's brilliant in it. I remember that much. Sean is kind of at the same level, says my left eye. Same level as what? People are obsessed with the Third Doctor. He's very much back in vogue. Even I have come around to the Third Doctor after all this time. Is it true that Patrick Troughton's son has played the Second Doctor? Asks Melanie Weston Investigates. Well, Michael Troughton plays the Second Doctor for Big Finish, so that could be what you mean there. You could be right.
Lots of people in the chat are actually reminding me. I'd forgotten. I was being polite and downplayed it. That apparently Gatwa called him a slut, not a tart, which is even worse. Worse. Was it? Is everybody correct in the chat saying that he did call him a slut? Have I misremembered it?
I'm afraid it was a slut. Yes, not only Shah in the live chat. Hi, Shah. She says he didn't call him a tart, did he? I thought he said that the Third Doctor dressed like a slut. Yes, he did.
That's even worse. I'd softened that in my own brain in that case. Then that's far worse.
It's so bloody crass, isn't it? But
it's horrific. It's absolutely horrific.
Would like to think that eventually Sean Pertwee does turn up in Doctor Who at some point, whether it'll be in Empire of Death later on in the season or somewhere else. Who's to say? But I'd say that eventually it has to happen. And he's only 59 years old. If Doctor Who stays on screen, then maybe his time will also come. Okay, so last weekend, speaking about the classic show and the mid-70s, last weekend, anybody who was watching Boom, the Stephen Moffat episode there, you may have got a bit of a treat if you were watching on BBC Wales. This, in fact, I think you sent me this, didn't you, Simon? It was all over Twitter not long after.
Yes. Yes. Fabulous.
So some clever more Doctor Who munchkins right away. They got on it and they clipped something for us. So yeah, this was Boom. This was the return of Stephen Moffat to Doctor Who after about 7 years, wasn't it? And so we were all amped up for that. But it seems like the continuity announcer at BBC Wales was just as amped up, but for a slightly different reason. And they're definitely a classic Doctor Who fan, because there was one element of the story that we talked about on the last show that they picked up on as well.
Navigating Edinburgh's murky underbelly, Rebus is new at 9:25 tonight. But right now on BBC One Wales, where's Harry Sullivan when you need him?
Isn't that fabulous?
That's great.
I mean, round of applause for that continuity announcer.
Yeah,
and also it's a bit of personality. The BBC one, in the English one, I'll put it that way, he doesn't have any personality, or does it?
So why did he say that, Simon? Remind us.
So
would that spring to mind?
It is, and people were sort of talking about this before Boom even aired, and I don't think it's actually a fair criticism. I've been very critical of the new series, but I don't think it's a fair criticism to say that the whole of Boom was really just inspired by one scene in Genesis of the Daleks, which you can see a quick shot of from the top left corner there. And there is indeed a scene in episode 1 of Genesis of the Daleks when the Doctor does indeed step on a landmine, and so Harry Sullivan has to come to the rescue with some carefully placed stones underneath. And I have to say, as a kid, it absolutely terrified me. I totally bought in to the fact that the Doctor could have had his leg blown off. They really do play it very, very well, and it works, and you believe there is some genuine fear there. And this is where I would hold it up and say that was what was very different about Boom on Saturday, which is just overplayed. And seeing Shooter Gatway just stand there crying is just boring, whereas Tom Baker absolutely carries it, and Harry Sullivan, Ian Marter does a great job with carrying the scene. And so yeah, it's Harry Sullivan that saves the Doctor from being blown to pieces in Genesis of the Daleks, and that of course is what the continuity announcer is referring to. And why, as I say, people were saying before Boom was aired that it was just a rip-off of one scene in Genesis, which I say it's a bit unfair. Might have been inspired by it, but whether you like Boom or not, it did go off in an entirely different direction and became its own beast. So,
yeah, we talked about it on the last show, how it was inspired partly by Genesis of the Daleks, and that's absolutely fine, isn't it, Adam?
Yeah.
Doctor Who, it is one long extravaganza, one legacy. So it's natural to pull the odd thing out here and there, and to maybe spend a little more time with a fun idea, which was, I wouldn't say that it was thrown away in Terry Nation's original script, but there probably was more drama to be sort of wrung out of something like that. I think it's harmless. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely fine. I mean, I probably wouldn't have made the connection if Stephen Moffat hadn't have sort of come out and said it, in all honesty. But I think I liked it because it gave a sort of a character piece, if you like. Whether you think Shooty pulled it off or not, it gave a character piece for him to be stuck on that mine for pretty much the entire episode. And that's a very Moffat-y thing to do. So I thought it was quite a good... Yeah, I like the fact he just plucked that little idea that was 5 minutes, if that, in Genesis of the Daleks and turned into a whole episode. I thought that was pretty good.
Another thing I liked about Boom, Charlotte, as a classic series guy, was the fact that they talked a lot about the technology that was used in realizing this story, particularly in Doctor Who Unleashed, and over on social media, the people like the technicians and the special effects people, once the episodes aired, they were allowed to share pictures of it, and they were talking about how they used technology that was similar to the Volume, which is the giant video wall that they use on Star Wars shows to create the alien backdrop there. But of course, I was looking at it and I couldn't help but think, in scenes like this, how even though Doctor Who is 60 years old now, and we've come so far. You know, we were looking at the TARDIS earlier on, just in 30 years, never mind 60. But isn't it funny how these alien worlds, with all this fabulous new technology now that we've got in 2024, to make that happen, they still kind of look like a studio, don't they?
Oh yeah, because it's not physically there, is it? That's always going to be, whether it's a bit of styrofoam or a massive screen, your eye can still pick these things out.
But you say that, and you're correct, Charlotte. But then you do look at the Mandalorian, and the volume that they use is quite breathtaking. So actually, there is a way of doing it well, but there's an art to it that they seem to have cracked on the Mandalorian that they don't seem to have quite cracked on Doctor Who, which is odd given the Disney connection. But maybe it'll get better.
But if you think about it, it's not Disney crew working on it.
Yeah, you're quite right.
The Disney crew probably know that technology back to front now. Whereas Russell, it's a bit like getting a brand new toy, and you're still learning how to press the buttons and how to use it almost.
I love this. I think the fact that it still looks a bit quaint actually does retain some of the series personality. That's no faint praise. I genuinely feel that way.
Oh wow! Okay, I must be honest. I sitting through Boom, I just was irritated by the fact that it did look like it was shot in a broom cupboard with some LED screens on it. What they do in the Mandalorian, she's very clever. They really only use the volume, the LED screens, in effect for the backdrop, and everything else is foreground. So they still have scenery in the foreground. Whereas in Boom, you were literally just looking at the LED screens at the back, which is why it ends up looking a bit like it's in the studio. But if it works for you, Dan, it's horses for courses, isn't it?
I think because it's Doctor Who, even though we now get it in widescreen, Adam, and sound has evolved, and generally speaking, the show, the energy around it is slicker and faster. I think seeing things like that, it's still the cozy show from when I was a kid in its DNA. I'm over-romanticising, maybe. Certainly people finding it on Disney Plus aren't going to think that way. But for me, that's...
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I think a modern audience will look at that episode and they won't think anything of it, because I think they are so used to everything being CGI and that now that they just don't look at it that way. Whereas I really don't like the amount of CGI that's crept into film and TV. So like you, Simon, I'm sat there looking at that episode and I'm thinking, yeah, it looks okay, but it's I almost expect someone to turn the back screen off like a television, just for the, because you sort of know exactly what it is. And because we get so many behind the scenes programs now, we are so aware of everything
very true
and how it's made that I'm sort of sat there thinking, oh yeah, so that bit of wall's probably real, but that's a bit of fake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Rather than actually looking at it like somebody who's 20 and used to it, is probably just thinking, yeah, it looks great.
And it lifts me out of the story. It does definitely take me out of the story. Yeah. I mean, I can see Stephen Braddock said in the chat, they should have just gone to the quarry. It worked for years. Absolutely, Stephen. I totally agree. I understand the reasons why they wouldn't have gone to a quarry for this, but they genuinely should have gone to a quarry for this. Genesis
I agree.
was shot in a quarry and worked brilliantly. And I think it would have worked a lot better for this. I did need to feel, for this story in particular, I did need to feel some gritty realism instead of highly polished CGI. And so it took me out of the story completely.
No, I agree with Stephen as well. And Marie Claire says, having now watched the classic era, I look at this newer era differently. I don't enjoy too much CGI.
Yeah, spot on.
Simon, you saying about it adding a bit of grit to the episode. So remember the end of Twice Upon a Time when they recreated the Armistead?
Yeah.
Never sure if I say that word right. That was shot in a real quarry or wherever, wasn't it? And they recreated the war quite well in that scene. So imagine this episode filmed like that. It would add grit to it, wouldn't it? If he's in a real location on a mine, it would add a bit of realism to it.
It did need some realism. It really needed some gritty realism, I felt.
And if there's one person who probably knows that as well is Simon Anthony, who worked on the classic show, who reminds us that quarries get wet. Not just wet, all caps wet.
Especially in Wales, let's be honest, if they were filming it. That's why I understand why they didn't go to a quarry, but it is a shame that they didn't. Look, it poured with rain when they were making Genesis of the Daleks. They just got on with it in those days, you know what I mean?
Shah says, I prefer a nice mix of CGI and quarryness, Charlotte.
Yeah, but you know, he obviously can't go there twice. We're in Wales this weekend. It was as clear as you watched 2 seconds of that trailer. It made me laugh. He didn't have to say, "Ooh, Wales." I was like, "Shooty, I can see behind you. I can see you're in Wales." It's very clear.
It's not what they get into showbiz for, is it? But I think this probably is. It's time. Yeah, they begin the slow march to the annual Backslappers event that is the National Television Awards for 2024. I know. I cannot believe that they have the gall to still put this on. But yeah, so it's on the 11th of September 2024 on ITV1, again billed as television's biggest night of the year. But in this instance, I've always cut them a little bit of slack because members of the public do vote on the NTAs. That's been their USP since they were established back in the mid to late 90s sometime. So yeah, the voting is now open. And Doctor Who, particularly David Tennant, had a very strong showing as part of the NTAs for several years, didn't it? They always went home with a few gongs, I think is the expression, a few gongs. And I think those days are long behind the show. But if you head over to the website, and there's a link to the description in this video, you will find that Doctor Who is indeed present. So it's nominated here in the returning drama category, along with a whole load of other shows, mostly police shows. Funnily enough, there's Doctor Who sat there. So there's 27 nominees. Wow. You can go and vote for Doctor Who. I mean, there was a time up until about 2018 where I would, no matter what, because I think I always enjoyed some series of new Doctor Who more than others, Charlotte, I would still go as a loyal Doctor Who fan and always vote for Doctor Who, you know? I've got out of the habit of doing that. In fact, I've completely ignored the NTAs for years now. But here it is. Is it nice to see it sat there alongside these other dramas? But then again, there's 27 nominees. How many dramas do return in the average year on British TV now? I don't know.
Well, every year they put Jodie up when she was the Doctor, so I think now it doesn't
did
really
they?
mean
Oh,
much,
God.
does it?
Oh, did they?
Did she ever win?
Did they really?
Did she get anything?
What do you think, Simon?
It's quite unlikely.
I think it's just part of the furniture that Doctor Who's now there. Honestly, that's what it feels like. It's not because it's there with merit. Whereas, like you said, when Doctor Who first came back, it did have to prove itself a bit. It did have to sort of get to that stage. But ever since, because it had such a good run with Tennant, I feel like ever since, just by proxy, it's been there because it's there.
It kind of just has to be there, doesn't it? They just chuck it in.
And also, you can't really... I don't think we were talking once again to do with this. It's only just started to be on screens. Actually, is it fair to vote for something that you've seen 4 episodes, where some of those have probably done a full series at this point? Is that really fair? If you try and like take away the whole it's your show sort of feeling about it, it's like, can I really judge? I don't think you could.
Presumably, I don't know. Have they got? They've got a couple of months to vote for this, have they? Or is this?
Yes, the voting is ongoing. So it started now, and obviously the ceremony isn't until September. So yeah, at one time I think they had about 2 weeks to do this in Adam, but the fact they give you now like 4 or 5 months, it's kind of like Pride Month. It's always on.
Can you change your vote as well if you get halfway through a series?
You can draw.
It's gone off the boil a bit. I think I'll go and vote for something else.
The results, they'll be read out by somebody called Joel Dommett, whoever that is. He's the host of the NTAs now in September. So you can either vote for Doctor Who in returning drama, or you can head over to the drama performance category and find David Tennant there, nominated for Doctor Who as the 14th Doctor. So you can select him. along with various other people. Future Doctor Who guest star Nicola Coughlan, she's in there in Bridgerton. Ashley Walters, who was in Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS. Samantha Bond, who was in the Sarah Jane Adventures. There's only Vicky McClure, who hasn't been in Doctor Who or anything Doctor Who related. But yeah, there's Tennant, so it's sort of back where he belongs as an NTA nominee. But in the same category, you may be torn because there's Ncuti Gatwa as well as the 15th Doctor. So you've split the vote there. So which one would you go for, Charlotte? I don't know.
Yeah, that is really odd that they both got the nomination, isn't it?
Playing the same bloke, the same character, yeah.
Especially as, like, you could only, if you're talking about Tennant, it'd be the special. So Ncuti only got about 10 minutes. But then if you're talking about Ncuti's era, Tennant's not been in it yet. That's my point. It's odd that they're both there.
I guess it's one of those things.
This is the gift in having 4 or 5 months to vote in, Simon, because obviously the season will be over.
And also, it possibly is one of those awkward things where how can you put one in without the other? If we put David Tennant in, it completely undermines Gatwa as the 15th Doctor. And if you put Gatwa in, it just looks a bit odd that you wouldn't put Tennant in because he's the most popular of the new series Doctors. So it's probably one of those things where actually they just kind of have to. Look, does it really matter? Gatwa's not going to win, so come on.
Well, it might.
It ain't going to happen.
You never know, but he could we've got how many episodes left? We've got another fight. He could win the nation over. Look, if people find this too difficult to decide between the 14th and the 15th Doctors, you could always just go for Peter Capaldi instead. He's nominated for his part.
Please tell me Matt's there for House of the Dragon
silly.
or something.
Come on.
It is getting silly.
Yeah. Josie H asks, didn't Tennant announced he was leaving on the NTAs after winning an award? I think it was the NTAs, come to think of it. We run quite a lot of them. They bi-generated the vote, suggests Fly Highland. Oh, very good, very good. Simon Anthony says, I really don't like Ncuti's cardigan. There, I've said it. Damning condemnation from Simon Anthony.
I think we're all in agreement on that one, Simon. Does anybody actually like that awful cardigan?
Yeah, no, but here's the question, and I've seen Geeky already talk about this. If Ncuti's there, what outfit do we think he's going to wear?
Well, he won't wear much, will he? Let's be honest, Charlotte. He won't wear. Probably be a pair of gold hot pants. That'll be it. I would a rough guess. And a cloak, maybe a little cape, perhaps.
There's a link in the video description there, so you can go. Well, which one are you going to vote for? Are you going to go for the 14th Doctor or the 15th Doctors, or you're just going to go for Peter Capaldi just out of loyalty to a proper, sensible Doctor who at least remembered to put his trousers on every day. So that's the National Television Awards. We're going to get the results in September, if you can be bothered to sit up for all of that. But yeah, I think you're easiest. Rather than sit for 3 hours of back-slapping bollocks, you're better off just waiting for it to hit social media. But yeah, there's a link in the description there for that. Yeah, you're talking there about Ncuti Gatwa and the things that he wears. I mean, my word, heaven knows what he turned up.
Oh no, you're not going to show us something. You're not going to show us something, are you, Dan? Please, you're not going to. Tell me you're not going to show us another shot of Gatwa in another stupid outfit. No, another week, another stupid outfit.
Simon, would it be Type 40 Live if we didn't torture you with a particular Doctor Who personality standing proud in a photo shoot wearing only a gold boob tube and legs akimbo?
What? Oh, please, save me.
Yeah. This time, yes.
You cheeky boy.
Oh, phew,
you can feel the tension draining away, even from all this distance.
I can feel the relief swelling. That's for sure.
Yes. So feast your eyes on the latest item from Harrops, the gold mummy there from Pyramids of Mars. Do you think he gets to keep his dignity, or do you don't want Ncuti Gatwa to see this in case he does get somebody to run him one up for the NTAs?
It would give him an idea. All he needs is the gold boob tube just strapped around him. I mean, that's all he needs, isn't it? Let's be honest. That's all he needs. That's absolutely beautiful, though, isn't it? I absolutely love that.
I like it as well. Sorry.
Go on.
I was going to say, somebody did say that he looks like he's doing a Tommy Cooper. How's about that then? And no, that's not Tommy Cooper. That's somebody else.
Bit cruel.
What did Tommy Cooper used to say?
It is what he used to say.
I absolutely love this. Obviously, Pyramids of Mars is a massive story, big favourite of mine. And this figure from Harrops, they don't move. There's no points of articulation with these. Is that, Adam? You're the merchandise guy, but they've been running for several years, haven't they? And they're all kind of hand molded. Sorry. This one comes with a canopic jar there with the head of a pharaoh and some hieroglyphics on it. Is this the sort of thing you'd add to your collection? Have you got any Harrops stuff there?
I've got loads. I love the Harrop stuff, mate. It's hand sculpted. They're hand painted. Limited editions. I love them. They sometimes, the sort of doctors that they've done, they're not always as good with the human figures, if you like, but the monsters they've done, I think, have been fantastic. I love them. They have their own style. A lot of people say their legs are sometimes a little bit too short. You know, they've got their own style, but yeah, they're gorgeous. And if you ever have one in hand, mate, honestly, they are so beautiful. You know, they're quite big figures. So yeah, love them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was going to say.
I thought they'd be.
No, they're good. You know, they're good size. Have I got one here? Yeah, I've got a Tetra. Here's one here actually. Because I've got a friend who hates them. He's like,
okay.
Oh, they look terrible. They're all out of proportion. I'm like, they're gorgeous. Honestly, if you actually had one. So this is this is the Tetrap. Sorry, my camera's probably not that clear, but this is the Tetrap one, so you can see how big it is.
Yeah, no, that is far larger than I was expecting. Yeah, I thought they'd be sort of like Citadel miniatures.
No, they're really, really nice. And as I say, hand painted, really doing an advert for them actually, but they are. I love them. I absolutely love them.
So this one, the Pyramids of Mars Gold Mummy, is available from the 28th of June from Harrops. I think the easiest place to find them is over on their social media accounts. They've got a really nice Facebook one where it's very, very personal. The people who make these, who sculpt them, you know, they post independently as well. So this is what I'm doing today. This is what we're sending out. You know, it seems like a very nice small business that really cares about their customers. And yeah, I do approve of that sort of thing, particularly when it comes to Doctor Who merchandise, because so much of it is sort of mass produced. We get used to that sort of thing, don't we? So yeah, I was very taken with that, Simon, and I thought
I love that. Tony L asks in the chat, what's the dog thing on the left? That's the canopic jar, Tony. That's the and that's Anubis on the top of the canopic jar in that one.
Anubis.
Anubis, yeah, it's Anubis, the jackal-headed thing. You're quite correct, it is a dog. And it appears in Pyramids of Mars. Tony L, I'm wondering whether you haven't seen Pyramids of Mars, and if you haven't, boy, are you in for a treat. Go and watch Pyramids of Mars. It's in there.
I like this comment from Doctor Who himself, Philip Roy, who said, I thought you were going to show that big moustache Colin Baker topless photo. There's only so much that anybody can take before the watershed, Phil, you know? Would I do that to a friend? We have got something pretty to look at here, though. I could not mention this because it's been revealed and released today out into the wild. So, friend of the show, sometimes panelist and all-round good egg, Will Hadcroft. If you remember, he had his first BBC audio original Doctor Who story, The Resurrection Plant. That was published around 2 years ago. The sequel, the next one, his second entry into that line at least, that's coming out later in the summer. He's been talking it up to me for a little while, and we finally have some cover artwork for Dark Contract. This is it. It's by Lee Johnson, and it's there with Peter Davison's Fifth Doctor, Adric, Nyssa and Tegan. And it looks very, very evocative. I'm not sure what that is that Adric's holding, but I can't wait to find out. Dark Contract is released on the 18th of July as an audio CD. Again, there's a link to pre-order that in the description to the video as well. We've got a bit of a blurb here, and it says, Matthew Adric Waterhouse reads this original story featuring the Fifth Doctor, Adric, Tegan and Nyssa. And it says, when the TARDIS lands on Earth in the 1830s, Tegan is keen to explore Dickensian London. The grim realities of poverty and destitution are sobering, with conditions exacerbated by the new poor law. Yet something else is affecting those most in need, something not of this world. For the beings who have formed a deadly contract with the people of Earth, the presence of TARDIS travellers in London is inconvenient, to say the least. So that sounds particularly evocative, even with my terrible reading of it. Obviously, the Resurrection Plant, you can order that right now. That's available already. And Dark Contract is released from the 18th of July, 2024. on audio CD, all that good stuff, all that gold. And yeah, go and follow Will on social media as well for more info about whatever else he's up to, maybe some signings, maybe we'll get him back on the show. I don't know. Have you heard the Resurrection Plant yet, anybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought you had. It's a blinder.
Very good.
No,
Okay,
sorry. Go on, Adam.
I was just going to say I'm very excited for this new one as well because Resurrection Plant is a cracking audio and I'm a big fan of Matthew Waterhouse. I got a lot of time for him. He's a nice guy, and as a kid I loved Adric. So to see this announced,
Me too.
I was like, Will, instant pre-order. I'm really looking forward to this audio.
Yeah, I've noticed Crimpling to Balloon says in the chat, "Oh, can't we watch this on iPlayer on Saturday instead of 73 yards?" It's true, Crimpling. We'd all rather see this than 73 yards. Come on, Russell. Pay attention to what the fans want.
And look how thrilled people are here for Will in the live chat as well. Very, very popular. Very much part of the community here too. Congratulations, Will. So well deserved, says Shah. And several comments, just the same. People are big fans of Will. Hail, Will Hadcroft. Great news for Will. I will be buying this, says Richard Brooks. Yeah, absolutely fantastic stuff. Can't wait to hear it too. I killed Adric, says Simon Anthony.
What? We need more information there, Simon. We definitely need more information.
A sobering confession there. You don't get this on Radio Free Scaro, do you, everybody? Yeah, so you won't have long to wait to get another fabulous Doctor Who story from Will Hadcroft into your ears. If you want to bide some time until you get that good stuff, get some more good stuff over at our home feed at type40.podbean.com. You can get our very latest podcast. That's myself, Charlotte and Kyle reviewing The Church on Ruby Road, the 2023 Christmas special that jump-started, maybe, I don't know, the Shooty Gatwa era. We review that, and you can go back through the back catalogue there too and get more of us and more interviews, previews, reviews, geek outs, and deep dives there from throughout our history of Doctor Who podcasting just for you. My God. Where next?
Well, listen, we've just got to say, Simon Anthony says he recorded his death scene twice. The first one was better. Simon Anthony supposedly recorded his death scene. Wow. Come on, Simon. We need more information. Very intriguing.
He seems like a very fascinating man, doesn't he? Yes. Resurrection Plant should not be confused with Regeneration Plant, which we know is celery. Oh, is that true? Is celery classed as a regeneration plant? Oh, I suppose it is.
Well, yeah, because if there's gases of the Praxis spectrum in the air.
There we are. Fabulous.
There you go.
Keep the comments coming, everybody, about the Golden Mummy, if you're going to pre-order that, about Will Hadcroft's new CD there, that's coming soon. Everything else that we've picked our way at over the last half an hour or so, there's lots more to get into as well here at Type 40 Live. Shah's watch what, Shah? I bet Simon's got a few stories to tell, says CTC. Yeah. Well, this one or Simon?
No,
I think he has.
Definitely t'other one.
It's high time we got him in for a chat about all of that, I think, isn't it? Okay, where next? I think we should go here. It can't have escaped many people's notice that Doctor Who's presently screening its 40th season, but it's season 1 and it's also series 14.
Stop it.
You're following it so far. My God. So yeah, episode 4 is on the way of whatever series this is. And Russell T Davies is back in the writer's chair, making himself comfortable, shifting himself around there. It's called 73 Yards. It premieres on Disney Plus on Friday, the 24th of May, and iPlayer at midnight as well. Then on BBC One Saturday again at 6:50 p.m. 6:50 is a weird old time slot, isn't it, Adam?
Yeah, it is. It's don't know. It's 7 o'clock. I know it's only 10 minutes, but 7 o'clock, bang on 7, just sounds like the right time. 6:50. Yeah. What you're still putting your dishes in the dishwasher and.
People don't kind of they think of it. Oh, it's about 7 o'clock, so they miss the first 10 minutes of it anyway, don't they? You don't think, it's 6:50. I've got to go and watch Doctor Who. It's
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
never a good time to start a show.
It's a great title, and I like how evocative these sort of little stings they put on social media a little while ago. I like Craig Lightower says there in the live chat watching on YouTube, 73 yards of ale. Yeah, my mind went there as well. My time round the pubs in the 90s there, Adam, that's where that comes from.
I'm not alone in that, yeah.
Yes, and we've got a blurb for this. It says, landing on the Welsh coast, the Doctor and Ruby embark on the strangest journey of their lives. In a rain-lashed pub, the locals sit in fear of ancient legends coming to life. Anarin Bernard and Sian Phillips guest star, so they're both Welsh talents. I think Sian Phillips has been in things for years, hasn't she? A veteran actress. I expect Susan Twist is probably going to turn up too. Yeah, yes, of course we've noticed, everybody. People keep leaving us comments about it. Of course we've noticed. But the idea of Doctor Who doing this kind of folklore, this Welsh folklore, as a fan of movies like The Wicker Man, Simon, does this get your juices flowing at all?
It might do more so if Gatwa didn't look like Paddington Bear. I still think they've made a crucial error in not giving him a costume. Sorry, but I just can't help. Look, okay. Being honest, this probably sounds the most promising episode so far. And just after I kind of thought I bailed with Boom because it really did just completely finish me off. I kind of think, oh God, okay, shall I try episode 4? Yeah, maybe I'll give it one last try. Because this is definitely more my kind of thing. It sounds more like my idea of Doctor Who. So well, look, the oranges even clash. I'm sorry, but the orange on his coat and her jumper, they can't even get that. Oh, sorry.
Watching the next time trailer, I do get that feel of that scene where they walk in the pub in An American Werewolf in London, and Rick Mayall and Brian Glover both turn around and scowl. That's the feeling of it. I personally think that this look for the Doctor, I think this is I think they've got it right here. I like that. I've not been terribly keen on the other things that he's been wearing, but to me, if the Doctor was dressed like this in 2024, you got the bright colours, but I could get on board. I could get on board with this. What do you think, Adam? Do you like the spooky stuff?
Yes, I am looking forward to this episode because I'm hoping it is going to be what we think. Something a bit creepy, something a bit out there, something a bit of science fiction would be nice. Do you know what I mean? Something a little bit Doctor Who-ish, a bit weird. As for what they're wearing, I think they both look like they've just stepped out of H&M. It's just, but you know what? The coat I actually don't mind because it reminds me a little bit of the coat Sylvester McCoy wore in Curse of Fenric.
Curse of Fenric, yeah.
Brighter version, obviously it would be, but it's kind of that duffel coat thing, and I don't mind it actually. In all honesty,
he's layered up, isn't he, Charlotte? Quite regularly when we come on this show, we talk about how many layers we've got on. I've got my cardigan back out this week. What's going on?
I've got the jumper back on.
It's weird, isn't it? But what do you think about this? At least he's dressed for being out there in the elements, isn't he?
Yeah, for me, I think that would look all right without the coat. Actually, I don't think that's a nice sort of jean with boots and jumper look. I think it's just the coat that's putting me off it. I agree. Because when I watched the Next Time trailer after Boom, it did seem to be. It looks like we'll have to wait until we watch it. Russell's finally going a bit more into sort of scary, spooky, sort of mystery again. And I think if you're being kind to Space Babies and Devil's Cord, you can say they were a little bit on the light side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is, in all honesty, this is why I like Doctor Who, and I've always liked Doctor Who so much, in the fact that in any series you can get the kooky one, you can get the hard sci-fi one, you can get the scary one, you can get the sort of kitchen sink one, you can get all these different flavours. That's sort of why I like it.
Yeah, but I think the problem is now, and I think I've seen quite a few fans have this sort of view of, if you can do that, brilliant, but because of what his writing's been like up to this point, it's not like they're not 100% believing it till they see it sort of vibe of, if he can pull this off, brilliant. I think it will almost show a bit of the sort of the teeth and the skill we want to see in Russell back as the showrunner. this will probably do a lot of good for him if he can pull this episode off. But then on the flip side, if he can't pull this off, I think a lot of fans are going to be like, what are we going to expect from you now? If you can't do this, if you can't do something that's finally, like I said, that sort of...
Pull a few thrills and chills out of the bag on a Saturday evening, old school Doctor Who, because I think that really, for children, this side, now I love all the spacey stuff and I love the silly stuff as well, but I think that Doctor Who generally makes childhoods when it's scaring the life out of the little sods.
Yeah,
the Slovene with the zip across the brow, that's the kind of stuff they want.
Well, no, I'm just thinking if this can be, and I'm not saying it's going to be this level by any stretch, but Russell did write Midnight, and that episode was very good with creepiness. That episode was very good with this idea of how people sort of turn on each other and how people, like the psychological elements of people in a confined space. And he said that idea of the pub and sort of... Because I suppose we've all done that, haven't we? We've been to a new place when we're the newbie and you walk into a place and you go, I'm not allowed, I don't belong here vibe. You walk into a pub and everybody looks at you and you go, I'm just going to go to another one because I'm not welcome. I'm not allowed. So he needs to get that sort of vibe here. And if he doesn't, I think that's a good proof that he has lost his teeth as a writer, honestly.
The Doctor against something ancient and out there, against the elements. I mean, like you say, Simon, he is more Paddington Bear than Bear Grylls, definitely. But
I'm being a bit unkind when I liken him to Paddington Bear. He does look like Paddington Bear, but you know, fair dues. Let's give it a fair crack of the whip. It's probably, I would agree with you, Dan. I would certainly say it's the best look so far that we've had from this Doctor. It's the most Doctor
by some way,
probably.
But
I mean, Stephen Braddock was saying in the chat, let's hope it's an image of the Fendal horror of fan rock kind of story, and there we go, and that's absolutely what we need this to be. And you can't help thinking that if this is what we think it might be, then they would have been much better potentially to open on this one than Space Babies, because this is potentially more what people think of with Doctor Who, and so this could resonate with the audience much better than Space Babies or a drag queen climbing out of a piano.
You see, I mean, for my money, they, as I've said, I mean, there's spoilers for our review of Space Babies. What they should have done was start with the church on Ruby Road, because I actually think that a story like this is absolutely perfect for the midpoint, because I think you do have to know the characters a little better for them to have properly bonded, to put them into a situation like this where it sounds like it is literally just them. The only people that they know they can trust and rely on is one another. Everything else could potentially not be what it appears to be. Even some poor little old lady nursing a stout in the snug of this pub could turn out to be the villain of the piece, for all we know, for all they know. So I think this is the kind of story that you can't launch a season with, but it is absolutely an integral part of any season of Doctor Who, and it's about time they got there. We've got a quote here from Russell T Davies, who says that episode 4 has got possibly the strangest villain you will ever see. Hyperbole, Russell, really?
Never.
You have to. No, but Simon, you have to come and watch. It's hot because it's hard to describe, even for somebody who's as good with words as Russell T Davies. My God, I'm getting.
You get bored, you do get bored.
Yeah. Even the shine is coming off it for me as a Russell T Davies fan. It's hard to describe. You've got to come and watch episode 4 to understand what's going on. Cheers, Russell.
Well, I think we could have worked that one out for ourselves anyway. We're clearly not going to know what's going on if we don't watch it. It's a bit of a hollow thing to say, isn't it? A bit shallow, really.
Bit weird. Bit warped.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no. I mean, I must be honest. Until we did this show right now, I had no idea what episode 4 was even about. I don't even remember watching the trailer at the end of Boom, so it clearly did nothing for me whatsoever. But you've actually, I have to be honest, you piqued my curiosity enough to say, okay, I had bailed after Boom. I will give this one a reluctant go.
Week by week, you'll find you've watched all 8 by the end of it.
Well, we're nearly there anyway, so to be honest, I probably will get to the end of the season now.
So that's 73 yards. This coming Saturday at 6:50 on BBC One, or if you prefer, you can see it on the iPlayer from midnight, or if you're overseas, you can get it on the Disney Plus app as well. However, is it gonna shiver everybody's timbers? Is it gonna make you spill your pint? Is it going to make you spill something else? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Have you been waiting for the scary one, like Simon certainly has? Maybe other people out there feel exactly the same way, that until Doctor Who does something like this, when it does turn the page and go into a new era, until it does something like this, or gives us a Dalek story or something like that, is it really and truly Doctor Who? Until we get any of those boxes ticked, Adam, I think that's a fair question.
Yeah, I think it's important that this is a good episode. It doesn't have to blow our minds,
Essential.
but it has to be good. It has to have a good concept, because I am really starting to worry that Russell's out of ideas. Like, if the first 2
Lost it.
episodes are ready, I want to know that he's still got it, and I hope this proves it.
You kind of think you can't really go wrong, in all honesty, with a kind of spooky episode by the sea with scenery like that. You can't really go wrong. So I will be shocked if this is not a good episode. It's a bit of a gift, this one, really, I would have thought.
And I think also coming after a Moffat one, which I would say, if you were to sort of generalize, got a better reaction than his episodes. I think now, especially, he needs to, like Adam said, he needs to prove himself now.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be saying this.
Yeah.
We should not be saying
Not
this.
3 episodes in, 4 episodes in.
No.
Halfway through the series.
Yeah.
And
I
for a
can't believe that.
returning writer, in a sense, we should not be saying, "Come on, Russell, have a good one now." But that's where we are.
But we
now
are.
with the show.
Well, me and my friend kept saying this. We're only 8 episodes this series. It's a shortened series.
Yeah.
And we were saying, really, every one needed to be a banger. And we've kind of got off on, half the series has pretty much not been a banger. And Church of Ruby Road, although I didn't mind that episode, I keep forgetting it exists until people like yourself, Dan, say, oh, yeah, and of course, this link to Ruby Road. I'm like, oh, yeah, I've forgotten about the episode already, because it does feel like so long ago. I don't even
It's a
remember
big
that
mistake.
much about it. Yeah, big mistake.
George Pelipar says that Horror Fang Rock was a season opener. Yes, it was, but of course, Doctor Who was on for like 9 months of the year then, and it was halfway through Tom Baker's run. So I think it's slightly different when we're talking about what's going on in 2024. We've only got 8 weeks, and it's the start of something new. But of course, I do take your point. But generally speaking, I think it's unwise. We're going back 50 years there. Russell T Davies loves his hyperbole, says Matthew Pounder. Really? Yeah. Have you noticed this, Simon?
Yes.
Yeah, I have. I've picked up on this occasionally, and it's fairly subtle. You have to look very hard to find it.
Well, have you not heard? Russell has said this is the best episode he's ever written for Doctor.
Oh, really? Has he actually said that, Charlotte? Has he actually said that?
I might be slightly paraphrasing, but he's basically trumpeted this as being his really, really good one. Fingers crossed.
Right, okay then. Pressure's on. Pressure's on.
Shah says at least he's encouraging people to watch it this time. You thought that had gone out of fashion. Yeah, the Cosmic Joyride continues this coming Friday / Saturday, depending on where you are and how you get your Doctor Who. Oh, I think, we've held it off for about as long as we can. Time for a quick break while we gather our thoughts and get ready to gas on about one of Doctor Who fandom's biggest, worst, but most favourite topics of them all. Here's some golden voices and golden faces advertising, let's face it, flogging bits of old tat from years gone by in the much-loved Type 40 Live Doctor Who ad break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Don't go away.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Well, I've been reading all about it. Look. Australia, a sunburnt country of sweeping plains, rugged mountain ranges of droughts and flooding rains. Banjo Patterson. You see, I know everything. Go on, ask me something else.
Population.
14 million.
Size.
Big.
Bradman's best test score.
428.
Australia's most famous export.
Well, Dame Edna Everett.
Advantages.
Whoa. Terrific weather, wonderful beaches, lots of water, healthy places, healthy people, lots of space.
Disadvantages?
Well, I mean, according to the latest microscan, none.
Incorrect. Update of microscan information reveals new situation. Australia is dirty, littered, imminent collapse of life support systems due to pollution.
What? Well, there you are then. That's why I've got to go down there. I've got to go down there and tell them to keep Australia beautiful. That's important. I'll tell them to keep Australia beautiful. It's important. Can I go now, sir? Thank you. It is important. Keep Australia beautiful.
Ways to get your hair Vosine clean, original and frequent wash herbal, with the fresh smell of alpine herbs.
Mum's chatting up the milkman again.
We've all got someone we like to have nice clean hair for, haven't we?
Vosine.
Exterminate! 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 Hamlet, the mild Sega.
Here we are again, back with more Type 40 live across your view screen on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and on X here. The Daleks, they're trying to get onto a bus in 1965. I think that is in this fabulous picture from back in the day. I've never seen this in colour before, Simon. Have you?
Muted. I'm guessing is that a colorized picture? I'm surely that must be colorized. Not.
That's what I wanted to ask you, really, because I don't think I've seen it before like this.
I've seen this many times in black and white, and so I'm guessing that must be colorized. Either way, doesn't matter. It's beautiful. I think you must be right. Yeah, that's going to be. I don't know. I'm trying to think. It can't be. No, I think it must be. I think it must be earlier than 65 because the Daleks had vertical slats by that point. I don't know when this is from, actually. Maybe 64.
64.
Yeah, it could be 64, something like that. Cinzano the Bianco on the back of the bus. Oh, that's dating it, isn't it? I feel very old when I see Cinzano. Do they still make Cinzano? Probably not.
It's not from the stage show, is it? Remember, who was the guy who
Could
did
be.
the stage show?
Oh, the Trevor Martin show. The 7 Keys to Doomsday. Do you know what? You could well be right there, Adam.
The old Wyndham's Theatre around the corner, maybe. I don't know.
You could well be right.
What was the previous one called? Was it called The Curse of the Daleks or something? The original stage play?
There was The Curse of the Daleks, and then there was the 7 Keys to Doomsday.
That's right.
And I'm trying to think. It could actually be the curse. Do you know what? This is probably the Curse of the Daleks. This probably isn't the 7 Keys to Doomsday. It's probably the Curse of the Daleks. Somebody in the chat, I'm sure, will know this one. But I think you're almost there, Adam. I think it probably is Curse of the Daleks from 64, 65.
Somebody in the comments is bound to know. Let us know where this photo hails from. I did think originally that the guy in the cap there on the bus, I thought that was Johnny Morris from the old Animal Magic TV show, but it seems like it isn't. It just looks a little bit like him, Simon.
It does look very much like Johnny Morris, doesn't it? Beautiful. I'm going to try and do a bit of research. I think this is Curse of the Daleks.
Yes, this is Type 40 Live. I'm back here with Simon Horton, with Charlotte Shields, and Adam Charlton, the Geek's Handbag himself, as we dig deep and have a good old rustle around, not so much in the Geek's Handbag, but in the Geek's brain here, because it's been overloaded with facts and stats over the last couple of weeks, I think. Never mind days. Why do we do it? We're going to talk ratings. This is a Doctor Who fan's favourite worst subject. I think a lot of this stretches back. Our fascination with ratings, begrudged fascination, stretches back all the way, I believe, Simon, to 19 1985. Doctor Who had been running, obviously, at that point for well over 20 years. And there'd been peaks and troughs, hadn't there, in popularity as fashions had sort of ebbed and flowed and all those sorts of things. But the renewal of the show had never really been questioned. It was unmovable as part of the fixtures. And then Michael Grade, who was the controller of BBC One in 85, just 18 months after the 20th anniversary, the massive success of the Longleat event and the Five Doctors, just 18 months after that, Michael Grade pulls the plug, blames the fact that no one's watching. And I do think that ever since then, and of course the series did come back for a few years, then went away. But that obsession with the ratings, in my opinion, started there and started then. We've never really shaken it off, have we?
No, I would agree, because prior to that, nobody really talked about the ratings. I mean, ratings just really didn't get talked about with Doctor Who. They ebbed and they flowed and they went up and down, but it really never was an issue. Nobody ever spoke about them particularly. And because the ratings were one of the reasons that was given clearly as the reason for all of the problems in the mid 80s. It never recovered from that. Doctor Who was forever then plagued by discussion of ratings right the way through the rest of the through the Trial of a Time Lord season, and then but more so through the Sylvester McCoy years. The ratings discussion debate was always front and center, and we were all Doctor Who fans were always constantly, literally looking at those ratings in case there was a pattern that might mean we needed to start having sleepless nights, that it was about to be cancelled again, which ultimately it was.
All the time, whenever a new season of Doctor Who starts, Charlotte, social media is filled up with people telling other Doctor Who fans, some Doctor Who fans telling others, why do you care about ratings? They don't matter. Why do you care about ratings at all? Why are you obsessed with ratings? But the honest truth of the matter is that a generation or two of fans, older fans, were positively traumatized by this. We thought that Colin Baker and Perry were going to disappear, never to be seen again. It was such a massive shock. And the fandom responded in the way that it always does, very vocally, very creatively. It was all over fanzines, and John Nathan Turner became the subject of a lot of, antagonism. I think, and not without good reason. But the show kind of limped on. It was given that graveyard slot, whatever you want to call it. But of course, when Doctor Who came back in 2005, from that point onwards, I think it was getting 9, 10, sometimes 11, 12 million viewers. It blazed its way back to television, back to popularity. And again, I think we started to take the ratings very much for granted. Of course, here we are. We've got this third iteration of the show that's just started. Needs must. We are where we are. It was driven into a wall, wasn't it? But the dialogue around ratings it had never really stopped throughout the entire life of New Who, had it, Adam? Have you noticed it would recur and it would recur?
Yeah, I mean, I can clearly remember where I was when Doctor Who was cancelled during the Colin Baker era. So I think a fan of a certain age. Yeah, I can remember it really clearly.
Me too.
I was in the playground, and a friend of mine ran up to me and said, Doctor Who's cancelled. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then, it was in the news and on the TV. So you're right. Ever since then, I think anybody who was around then or has got any sort of investment in Doctor Who, because it was given this second burst of life and it came back and it became popular, we don't want to see it disappear again. And I think that's why we get so defensive of it, if you like. You're so worried about it. So when people say ratings don't matter, I think they do to an extent. I find ratings interesting. Yeah, they do. I get a little bit annoyed when people say, they don't matter, viewing habits have changed. That's true to an extent, but they are an indication of where the show is, I think. So.
Well, the truth, you're right, Adam, and the truth is they are the only indication of where the show is, if we're honest. Certainly for the television industry, and like you, I just get really annoyed when people say that the ratings don't matter. It's amazing when Doctor Who does well, and when an episode does well, you will always hear defense. There you go, the ratings are brilliant. But when they're not doing well, when the ratings are low, everybody says, well, ratings don't matter. The landscape of people's watching has changed, and so it's just rubbish. Yes, the landscape has changed, But it's changed for all programs across the board, not just Doctor Who. So you still have to look at the ratings as they are now and compare them with other shows, and you have to see how well they're doing. And as I say, that's what the industry does. The industry has to do it, because otherwise it has absolutely no idea of whether shows are popular or not. They wouldn't, these broadcasters would not pay to get ratings in if they weren't important, if they didn't do something with them, if they didn't pay attention to them. They would save the money.
Because that's the thing, isn't it, Simon? They commission external bodies to gather and collate these figures and statistics to be studied. Usually, more commonly, it's for purposes of the advertising industry when they want to sell space in between programs because they need to know how many eyes are potentially going to see them. But that's not exclusively the reason, is it? I mean, things do change all the time. We're not saying that TV hasn't evolved. Of course, it clearly has. But there's no more market for TV that nobody's going to watch than there is for food that nobody's going to eat. And here at Type 40, of course, over the last 2 weeks, I think it's been, since those first overnights come in, we've resisted jumping all over these figures. We wanted to very deliberately bide our time and wait for the consolidated figures, because whether we like it or not, and whether our own viewing habits have altered or not, how and when and where we watch Doctor Who, it has altered. It has evolved. The BBC have effectively radically repackaged Doctor Who as a product and as content in offering these episodes up to stream 18, 19 hours before any scheduled terrestrial broadcast on British TV. That doesn't remotely negate the value of overnight viewing figures, but I feel it does make the overnight figure a more transient one. It's sort of solely relevant to a pocket in time, because the meter in effect, if you look at it as a taxi, as an Uber, the meter is running before, during, and after those broadcasts, and the publicity that the BBC is putting behind it, which didn't start this time until a few days before, if you remember, all of that publicity is actively aiming to move as many of that audience who's always waited for the broadcast over to the iPlayer. If you notice on those billboards that are everywhere now, there is no mention of BBC One at all, just the iPlayer, because that is where the BBC wants you and wants us and intends on farming us collectively over a period of time. So this is a big swing. It's a key move. It's not the first show to do this by any stretch, but it's probably the most high profile to do it. I suppose the simple question is, has this altered anything? Has it altered the way that any of you watch Doctor Who? And do you think this is working?
I don't think it is, because it makes it makes you feel less. Because you can watch it whenever. You're not in a rush to watch it. Yeah. Because it's there
the
whenever.
urgency.
The sort of the urgency, the idea of, I need to almost plan my day.
Well, the excitement, Charlotte, the excitement is gone.
Because I can remember that first weekend when we had Devil's Cord and Space Babies. I had no urgency to watch those episodes, because I was like, I'll get up, I'll do some other stuff, and then I'll watch them in the afternoon, because I know I'll miss the Saturday slot, because like you said, it's such a bad slot it's got at 6:50, and it doesn't change for them when I watch it, because that's still going to be one view, so I can watch it whenever. And that's the thing; it makes you more complacent. That's the word I was trying to find. And that's the one thing you don't want to instill: complacency into your audience. And I think this sort of midnight release, have it then for the whole day before, is making you sort of go, I'll watch it when I've got the time.
Yeah, totally.
And you do
you're absolutely right, Charlotte, and this has only struck me in the last 2 days. I've been, for the last 3 to 4 weeks, people have been telling me how brilliant Fallout is on Amazon. And I absolutely am going to watch it, but because I know it's there waiting for me, I'm watching another couple of shows at the moment, which I've got a few episodes left to see. So I don't want to start yet another show Fallout's not going anywhere. So I'm quite happy to just avoid spoilers, and I'll start watching it in a couple of weeks because it's always there. And whilst I don't offer this as a defence of the BBC's marketing and this strategy, and certainly not the hyperbole, I do think that this is a key change, because these episodes of Doctor Who will also always be there. And so that complacency is going to partly be promoted in people, but obviously it's still not going to be instinctually where people go for Doctor Who, because if they know a new series is back on, they're still trailering it on conventional television. The cast are still on the One show and doing all those silly things. Graham Norton show, Adam. They're still popping up where you think they're going to pop up. But generally speaking, my viewing habits have drastically changed. And so if it wasn't Doctor Who, I would have this, and I would have this queued up after Fallout. It would be something I'd get round to in a few weeks, because it wouldn't matter when I watch it to them, because I am going to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't understand the BBC's obsession with the iPlayer. I don't know why they are so obsessed with driving people towards it.
They were very proud of it, because to be fair to them, they pioneered this technology. They were global leaders with the iPlayer originally, nearly 20 years ago. And I think everybody else, against everybody, but they were passed over, 10 years ago now. It's been quite a while. And I think they've been trying to catch up with the global players for quite a long period of time now. And so they tried it, didn't they, a few years ago with BBC Three taking that online. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily the worst idea in the world, but they didn't have the right selection of shows. It wasn't the right channel to do it with either, because it was BBC Three. And it was about 8 years ago, because they led Class was part of that launch, wasn't it? Yeah. And Class often gets sort of dismissed because of that. But it was more a massive cock-up. It wasn't necessarily Class. It was the whole initiative behind it. Now, 8 years later, Channel 4 is doing exactly the same thing. But because now we are in the streaming age, that could actually work quite nicely for Channel 4, and could work with this could actually work with the BBC again. But because they are intent on hanging on to their funding model, they will not accept the fact that the license fee has to go. You're going to get a foot in both camps, which really doesn't help the member of the public, because it reeks of not just complacency, but of hypocrisy, and of they take your license fee money for granted.
Mm. Yeah, it's also sort of just laziness. It's an impossible question. We'll never know the answer to it, but you are left wondering what the viewing figures for this season would have been like if they had actually billed it as proper event TV, and they had done the proper marketing campaign that we were saying on this show for weeks, for months. Where is the marketing campaign? It didn't happen. It didn't drum up any excitement. It was just business as usual, and you do wonder what the viewing figures would have been like, certainly for the first couple of episodes at least, if they'd done it as event television. And I think it's fairly obvious, although again we'll probably never be told this. I would have thought it's a reasonably good guess that this has come about because of the Disney influence, because they wanted to screen those episodes first in America at what time is it, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and you just can't
perhaps, but looking at what the BBC have been doing, because they started doing this with EastEnders about 2 years ago, I think this was always going to happen. EastEnders now premieres on the iPlayer. Several dramas do. So I think that Doctor Who eventually would have happened no matter what.
Yeah, maybe. But I'm still left wondering if maybe this deal with Disney will ultimately be the death knell for Doctor Who, simply because it might have had more of an impact than we can imagine. This idea of screening it at midnight. It could be that the Disney deal is the death knell for Doctor Who. Obliquely, not for the reasons we necessarily thought it was going to be.
It's hastening its death.
It's not doing it any favours, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for the overnight figures, quite in my opinion, and this is demonstrably true now, a fortnight on, the overnight figures are interesting mainly only in relation to the consolidated figure that comes later, because the consolidated figure is that which they're concentrating all their efforts on to try to increase. Them trying to move the audience over, all the publicity is there. But of course now all of the figures have been mass reported in the way that they always are. It's led to immense frustration and anger stroke disappointment, and lots of I told you so's, lots of there's nothing wrong, nothing to see here's. But the truth of the matter is probably some somewhere as always, in the grey areas in between, I feel, Charlotte.
Yeah, the problem is you've now got so many different ways to excuse these view figures than ever. I mean, before people were doing it, but now they've got even more. But I found when those overnights got released, I agree, they weren't the full picture by any stretch, but I just found them as an interesting, for me, indicator than anything else, that the sort of the diehard, the sort of beating sort of heart of the fan base clearly weren't there anymore compared to what it's done before. Even Shooty's, even if we just look at Shooty's first episode on Christmas, that was a way stronger overnight figure than what he got in his opus in this series. And that's just in one Doctor's own run. I'm not even talking about previous Doctors here.
I think it's the goodwill that's kind of been. It's I wouldn't say it's completely evaporated, but it's getting that way.
Well, yeah, and the problem is, if you have a weak overnight figure, then, like you said, your consolidated need to be twice the amount, just to start to just to be anywhere near strong. Let alone if you really want to boast about it, you need ridiculous consolidated figures. So they were put in and this is what I never understood personally, why the production team would put more sort of weight on themselves with viewing figures. I think, honestly, this method has put more pressure on getting more people watching than if they would have just done it normally.
Yeah.
Because you were relying. Also, there's one thing that it's always been important, word of mouth. But you think about, you want a consolidated figure now, your word of mouth needs to be incredibly good.
Yes.
Because as soon as enough people hear, God, that was a bad episode, to some degree, they're going to go, well, I was thinking about watching it, but then I've heard all these bad reviews.
Well, we're back to what I was saying about Fallout. That's all word of mouth, really. I've seen a couple of posters, a couple of things on buses, Adam, but generally speaking, it's been people that I know, like, or respect, mostly, who've said to me, you should watch this show. And so that actually does. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right, Charlotte. And, you know, the era of the 15th Doctor has been officially, we've been in it for several months now. You'd never really know it because the BBC hasn't done a great deal to keep it fresh in the minds of the viewers in the time in between. We've got these consolidated figures now. So these are for the first two episodes that both screened as part of that double bill, if you remember, just under a fortnight ago. And this came as quite a shock when these were revealed, because obviously the overnights are one thing. We're waiting on this figure because this is everything all together. Everybody who watched it on the night, everybody who started at the midnight the night before, and people who watched it in that short time afterwards. It's not painting a very positive picture about what's to come as the season moves forward when you see figures like this as final consolidated ratings, Simon. I was expecting it to be a lot more than this.
Yeah, I mean, I must be honest, I wasn't. I'm certainly not blowing my own trumpet, but I do think 3 or 4 weeks ago, I started kind of calling.
You did, yeah.
I guessed at 4 million, but I'm not happy to be right. I tell you what, Dan, this is truly terrifying because these are the lowest figures, Space Babies and the Devil's Cord. They're the lowest figures that it's only ever been beaten by Legend of the Sea Devils. I think that was that about nearly 4 million,
3.91 or something like that.
It was less.
I think actually it was about 3.75. I think it's just below the Devil's Cord, but that's one episode only. Apart from that one episode, these are the worst figures of New Who so far. Now, Boom is obviously going to go down further because the overnight for Boom was less than the overnight for the first two episodes. So it will be less again. So we're going to be back down to about 3.8 for Boom, which means by episode 4 and 5, it is going to be below Legend of the Sea Devils. So they will officially then be the worst figures for Doctor Who ever.
It was commonplace, Simon, during the Peter Capaldi era that when consolidated figures came in, well, obviously, because that's the last time we have had now, it's not just a new Doctor. Doctor Who is back on Saturday nights. A lot has changed in the last few years. So it's not 2018 anymore. It's not 2014 anymore. But Doctor Who is back on Saturday nights. The last time it was on Saturday nights when Peter Capaldi was the Doctor, it used to do very well on iPlayer. It would sometimes double its audience on iPlayer. And this time, with them throwing more weight behind that, despite the years in between, this is why I thought it would come in around the 5.5, 6 mark. So when I saw these figures for Space Babies and the Devil's Court, and they aired one after the other, of course, so that's only a small drop in between the two, but it's still not very much at all. And yet Shooty Gat was still smiling.
I want to know how they're going to turn this around, though, because if these are the viewing figures now, what on earth are they going to be like by the time Series 2 comes out next year? How are they have got to somehow turn around and get the audience back, because otherwise you're going to be at 1 or 2 million consolidated by Series 2.
Yeah, by the time we get to the end of this season, we're going to be touching 3 million, I would say. And I guess maybe season 2 or whatever you want to call it will maybe start at about maybe 3.5 million. I mean, they are absolutely disastrous figures. And they're just indefensible. And I honestly think, again, I'm going to call it now, I think we're only 1, maybe 2 seasons at most away from cancellation. I genuinely think the maximum, obviously, we know we've got the next season that's already pretty much in the bag. They might produce a 3rd season. I'm not convinced. Even if they do, I honestly think after that it will be cancelled. But I'm going to call it and say that the next season will be the last one. They'll cancel it.
But surely
Josh H says it's lost a lot of the casual fans, Adam, and definitely all of the casual viewers.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Surely they've got to look at their promotion for this series and how they tried to build momentum, and surely they've got to look and think, right, what did we do wrong? And we know they got quite a lot wrong with all the stuff they came out with before the show aired, which just completely turned people off. Shooty Gatwa is never going to live down telling fans to go and touch grass. He's never going to get away from that, because every time you get figures like this come in, people are going to throw it straight back in. Well, you told us to go and touch grass. He's never going to live that down. So they have got to look at how they marketed this, the things they were saying, the things that they did that have driven people away, like the hardcore fan base, which has absolutely been obliterated. And they have got to somehow try and get that back. And I don't know how they do.
And yet it's funny, isn't it? It's funny, isn't it, Adam? Because only a couple of weeks ago, Dan, you were reading out the piece from RTD from the Radio Times, and he was saying, we've got the core fan base that will always stay loyal to us.
Yeah.
Where are they, Russell? They've gone.
And I can't help but notice as well, Simon, how the usually very verbose, very opinionated, and very, very sure Russell T Davies has been so quiet in the last 5 days.
Well,
he hasn't gone this long I'd say he hasn't gone this long since Chris Chibnall effectively left the stage 18 months ago. He has never gone this long without making some sort of statement, Charlotte, than he has over the last 5 days.
Well, that was my first little, like I said, there was a couple of clues before we got them. And I need to go after this. That was my little, if I had an antenna going up to be like, Russell's not boasting about his viewing figures. Oh, are they low? That was literally my thought process. And I honestly think the thing that needs to happen now, and I think they'll probably do it near the end of when they've got near the end of this series viewing figures. I think for Russell, that was boasting how many weeks ago that it takes a strong executive to tell him no.
Yes.
I think a strong executive needs to get him in a room and say, Russell, look at these viewing figures.
I think they will, Charlotte.
See, as true as that
man was saying to the fans. Look at what you were saying to the fans.
Yeah.
As true as that undoubtedly is, he should never have said that publicly either.
No. But like I said, I think that's what's going to happen at the end of this series, viewing figure wise. He will have to have some sort of conversation to say, look, you're going to take notes now. You're going to listen. Because we cannot have this.
Yeah.
And I think he might actually have to swallow a bit of that ego.
The
I
problem
think
is,
what's
Charlotte,
happened here, Charlotte.
So-
I think what's happened. You going? Bye bye.
Okay,
Good night.
bye.
Good night.
Thank you again for your company,
Good night.
Charlotte. We'll see you next time.
See you next
Lucky girl, escaping the ratings debate. But as Charlotte leaves, we are connecting, we are mind linking with another Time Lord. I'm happy to say I have no idea where in time and space he's been, but I'm happy that we've finally got him. We're on the right track to connect, to make contact on the other side of the world with Mr. Matt Pott.
Hello.
You've only just woken up, mate.
I love the cat, buddy.
Yeah, damn alarm, I tell you.
You're just in time for Doctor Who fans' favourite subjects. We're talking about ratings here. Stephen Braddock. You see, people like Stephen, they are the bread and butter Doctor Who fans. The people that Russell T Davies, talked up in the Radio Times article, Simon. You're quite right. But ultimately, people like you and I, Simon. Well, I say it's mainly you. I haven't got a TV license anymore. You. I'm still watching it on original broadcast. Otherwise, it's just not event TV anymore. Stephen obviously still gets the tingles, that feeling of, I have to be there, otherwise I'm missing out, and a feeling that maybe you're not turning up to support your team when they're playing on a Saturday afternoon. I think there are Doctor Who fans that still feel that way, but they are gradually draining away. They're killing us off. They're sniping. Every silly comment, every stupid quote, every touch grass picks off one or two more.
And I think, what's happened, Dan? I think now we're able to sort of look back on that whole sort of touching grass period, and it will become known, I think, as probably the touching grass period. And you look back on it, and I think what was going on there, I think that RTD's arrogance, and I think he is arrogant, I think he's smug, I think he's egotistical, and I think his arrogance, which was rubbing off on Gatwa as well, has come
big time.
has upended them. Basically, I think the arrogance was there that RTD believed that everybody would come back to the show because he was back. Everybody would come flooding back to the show because he made such a success of it first time, and he thought it was a done deal. And I think they all thought it didn't matter what they said to the press. It didn't matter how many times they said about touching grass or any of that crap. They genuinely thought that people would still just keep on eating this up, and they've been proved wrong. And I wonder whether Davis now has sort of sleepless nights thinking, wow, what did we do? We handled it badly. I shouldn't have let that touching grass comment go out, because I still maintain somebody would have looked at that interview before it went out. It would have been approved by somebody. Why did they let it go out? It was arrogance, and it's now upseated them, I think.
You could say that somebody like Russell T Davies with that track record has every justification in many respects to be pretty sure of himself, to be pretty arrogant. But
you can never be arrogant, can you?
Not publicly.
You can't, not even internally. Once you become complacent and once you become self-satisfied that you can't do anything wrong, you are stuffed. You will trip up. That's guaranteed. And so I think that's what's happened.
It's ugly, and it turns people off. Adam?
Now the mask has slipped, though. What can Russell say to somebody like me, a hardcore fan, to want me to support his show anymore? Because I think the mask has slipped. I've seen...
It's too late, isn't it, Adam? It's too late.
I don't know what he could say to somebody like me.
Well, I tell you what, Adam. I tell you what, sorry would be an opener. Do you know what I mean? It would be good if he actually apologised and said, do you know what? We actually think we got it a bit wrong. We think maybe our arrogance, our confidence unseated us.
Exactly. It's not as if, most people are nice and reasonable people and accept that anyone can make a mistake. We don't want anybody. We wouldn't wish to see anybody hold over hot coals. But a simple, look, we got that one wrong, or you were right and we were wrong, or we'll think more carefully about this going forward. A bit of humility when quite clearly you've been proven to be at fault and simply wrong wouldn't go amiss. People respect that, and I think people find apologies refreshing as well, as long as you don't do it all the time and it doesn't ring hollow. If you apologise when you've quite clearly cocked something up. I've got this comment here from Corbin M up here on the live chat. He's watching on YouTube and says, would people agree it's a historic failure of the BBC they didn't push iPlayer as a global streamer? If they'd have done that, they wouldn't need Disney. Generally speaking, again, this is a point I want to probably come back to another time, but yeah, they were market leaders. They were the ones who pioneered this technology in the first place. They had the impetus, the momentum to get a head start on literally everybody else, probably globally. And they didn't do it. And you know why? Because they didn't want to compromise their funding model. They didn't want to lose the license fee. That's what all of this is about. They won't loosen their grip on your money, and they will not get their hand out of your pocket. It's an outdated method of funding, and every decision that they make exposes it even more, and yet they try to resist the reality that everybody else can see as plain as the nose on their faces. And whilst I would argue that they would still have probably needed an international partner, they could have done it domestically, probably throughout Europe. I don't know. There could have been some leeway. They would be a lot further. If I hadn't have resisted this jump for so long, they would be international players. They did get close with the BBC America thing, but they cocked that up as well. So partly, Corvin, I partly agree with you. Matt, whether you're a Disney Plus customer, where you are, you've spoken at length about how you had the platform largely just to watch Doctor Who, didn't you? You kind of resented it because you'd always watched it on ABC, but you took one for the team anyway because it's Doctor Who.
Yeah.
How do you think it's going down in Australia? And are people talking about it at all, or what's its profile like there?
No, not really.
It's still not happening.
I've rarely seen any advertising. There's been a couple of morning shows that have had the interviews that they had going around, but yeah, nothing at all. I mean,
were you shocked when you saw the BBC figures, the consolidated figures that we got this week?
I had to clarify with Simon because I was like, "What's?"
It's understandable.
Is this it, or is this it, or is there more to come?
No, there's no more to come. That's it. That's your lot.
And I think it was the wrong. It really needed a rest.
Yeah, I agree.
I think people have had this fatigue, and I think that the fatigue is really, really showing now. That they've run out of steam. Russell really didn't see the writing on the wall at all, did he? Like, it was just how can you be so blind to see, what worked in the last season that Chibnall left us with? What are the remnants? I think how to move on. But
I do think it's ego, Matt. To be honest, I do think it's smugness, and that just comes through every pore of the show's being at the moment. Even the episodes feel smug. The episodes have a smugness about them. For me personally, they do. They
simply have to decide what they're going to be. Are they going to be a global streaming platform, a proper studio with an international profile, or are they going to be a public-funded domestic operation? That's because you can't be both. Certainly not indefinitely, and that's what they're aiming for. Darren Bradley mentions Talking Pictures TV there in the live chat, a huge success story. I think it's their 9th anniversary this week. They cut their cloth. The reason why that's a success is because they very carefully manage their resources. They've got their eyes wide open. They don't take any of their viewers for granted. They know what money they've got to play with. They expand gently and feasibly, because it's their money. The BBC have your money, so they don't care. They waste it. They waste it like water. Thank you for that comment, Darren. Yeah. Looking at the figures, of course, we can look at them now and we can look at them then and think, my God, that trajectory has continued to fall. The unprecedented sharp drop, the consistent drop during the Jodie Whittaker era. It started high, the curiosity of people wanted to see, what the woman one was like, and it just dropped. It was, we've all seen the graph. It boom, all in one direction, very, very, very steeply. But of course, there's been episodes in between.
They never returned for Shooty, though, did they?
Well, the problem is
they didn't. But that hasn't been the end of the story, because it's one thing for us to look back at Legend of the Sea Devil, Simon, as you quite rightly said, and the figures are back kind of where they were. But there's been episodes since then, just 6 months ago. These 3 episodes, they were on in the late autumn, sort of late November, early December. And these consolidated figures, these were really healthy for the 2023 60th anniversary specials. Yes, there were some Doctor Who commentators who were claiming that these were disastrous. But, no, they were never disastrous. These were absolutely fine. In fact, these were about what you would expect. In fact, really quite strong for overnight figures for the Star Beast, Wild Blue Yonder, and the Giggle. So what this does show us, I would argue, is that people will turn up for David Tennant.
Yeah.
And
well,
Catherine
but
Tate.
bear in mind, Dan, as well, that the Church on Ruby Road got about 7 million viewers as well, didn't it? So they did turn up for the Church on Ruby Road. So, in all honesty, the
that was Christmas Day, though, when there's more people on their asses.
It was Christmas Day, but the only takeaway I can get from this is that people tried the Church on Ruby Road and did not like what they're seeing of the new form of Doctor Who.
So they gave him a day in court. They saw him in the Giggle.
Yes, they saw him in the Giggle. They saw in the latter half of the Giggle, and they saw a whole episode with Ruby Road, and it didn't win them over. And it's as simple as that. I mean, it's kind of, you can't argue with that logic because they're now all pretty much half what the Church on Ruby Road figure was. And okay, yeah, it does get it, but then arguably, does it get any more for being Christmas Day, because everybody's doing loads of other stuff on Christmas Day these days? So actually, it makes the Church on Ruby Road look a pretty damn good figure. There's nothing wrong with that figure. Nobody could commentate and say that 7 odd million for the Church on Ruby Road was a poor figure. But
because that's what happens, isn't it? When they change the lead actor of a show like Doctor Who, more people tend to turn up anyway. But premiering a new actor on Christmas Day, that did go pretty well as well. 7.49 million people did watch. That was a consolidated figure again for the Church on Ruby Road, but that is almost double.
Yeah,
the people who turned out for Space Babies.
And that's the problem. And I think, in all honesty, everybody expected the 3 Tennant specials to do better than they did. 7.
Maybe. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with those figures at all. They're perfectly solid, decent figures. But I think we all expected it to be more like 8 to 9 million, very comfortably. But it doesn't matter. They're decent figures. This is a decent figure. 3.9 million is an atrocious figure. It's indefensible. Simple as that.
Do you think that they were turned off by the lead actor? Because Doctor Who is a show that is led by the personality, the appeal, the energy of the person starring in it. It's kind of like detective shows. Death in Paradise thrives on that, but other shows have as well. Magnum PI. If you don't like Tom Selleck, you're not going to watch Magnum PI. And Doctor Who, it's a similar kind of part. The Doctor is practically in every single scene. The personality of that characterization very much fuels the show. So if it doesn't connect for people, they are going to give it a wide berth, aren't they, Matt?
I think their main issue was it wasn't recognisable. As far as Doctor Who's concerned, like
I think that didn't help. It didn't look like Doctor Who, is what you're saying.
Yeah. It just looked like every other show that people are channel surfing still, are they? I mean, it's like if they came across it or whatever, you'd go, "What's this?" And then they'd go, "Oh no, not interested." I just don't think. There hasn't been a lot of the things with that have noted with it being recognisable. Like there's very rarely, there's not been not much with the TARDIS, if you've noticed. Like the TARDIS just disappears completely. Like there's no return to it or whatever during an episode. And that's the only thing that's recognisable about this show. I'm sorry. Like I've said before, this is like 2 companions. But look, I'm not going to say that the chemistry between the 2 is there. It's there for me. But he's not the Doctor as far as it just doesn't look it looks more like two companions just jaunting around, and so it just doesn't. I don't gravitate towards it as much.
Even though we've talked again about the touching grass comment, obviously that probably hasn't entered them. I think more of that stuff crosses people's timelines and feeds, Adam, in social media than we think. Because I sometimes get non-fans say, oh, that new bloke in Doctor Who, I've seen him wearing this, or what was that he said about don't watch it? I do sometimes get normies asking me about that. But generally speaking, that stuff stays localised, doesn't it? Quarterised. So it can't be that with the general public. It simply must be the fact that they've seen enough, they've seen all they need to see, or Doctor Who's been back for nearly 20 years. It's just a new season of that show again. The show which has ebbed and flowed and gradually had its popularity drain away because of the car crash Chris Chibnall era, which drove away so many people. It's like a perfect storm that Doctor Who, quite clearly as a brand, just isn't clear of yet.
I think a lot of the promotion they've been doing has actually harmed the viewing figures.
You think it has?
Yes, no, I do, mate, because when I go into town, there are a couple of little people that I don't know, but that we'll always have a little chat. So there's a guy at the train station. He always sees me and comes running up, and he always likes to talk to me about Doctor Who. When's the new Steelbook coming out? Blah, blah. I said to him, "You looking forward to Doctor Who on Saturday?" "I'm not watching it." He said, "Just like I'm not watching it."
Really?
I said, "Why?" He said, "Because of what he's been saying. I won't watch it." After
wow.
Talking about Shooty. Okay, he hasn't watched it. Fair enough. Same day, went into town, went to Smith's, W8 Smith's, another little guy in there. I always pick up Doctor Who magazine, talk to him. And I just like to get the feels out for what people, are thinking. That
so they're regular viewers, but they probably haven't got an account at Gallifrey Base, for example.
Spot on, Dan. That's exactly it. And I said to the guy in Smith's, this was the week later, you watching, what do you think to Space Babies and Devil's Called It? Rubbish, he said. Rubbish. I'm not going to watch anymore. And I thought, God, that's like two people in the space of a week that have told me. And these are people who will want to give it a chance. Now, I just want to quickly say something, right? During the Whittaker era, that drove away so many fans. When Russell come back, I mean, the goodwill amongst fans to want to give the show another chance. A lot of fans that had walked away saying they were never going to watch it again and meant it. When Russell came back, there was a section of them that sort of looked over their shoulder and went, "Oh, Russell's back. Well, all right, I may give it another chance." He had a lot of goodwill.
A lot.
He really did, yeah.
And what did he do?
Burns it through very quickly. He slammed
so many doors in their faces that he just pushed them away again. And that's what I can't believe, Dan. He if he wanted to build on the hardcore fan base, and there was a lot of people wanting to give him another chance, I think he's made a lot of mistakes. In all the stuff he said, in the writing not being very good, you combine that all together, and that's why you end up with 4 million views.
You know what's ironic is the fact that Jinx Monsoon recently said that they don't want like people critics, and so for every one critic there'll be 5 new viewers for this show, which is just
so where's the logic in
it's
that?
insane. It's like obviously you don't know who your viewership is.
That's right.
Well, Jinx Monsoon proved themselves to be a complete moron as well as a degenerate a couple of weeks ago by saying all of that. Obviously, because they're sailing off into the sunset now, so they're not going to lose any sleep over Doctor Who, even though it's showrun by one of their friends. They don't give a toss. They don't know who we are. I suspect that they don't know the show as well as they profess to. And they certainly don't give a toss about the fan base. So I do wonder when the publicity department see quotes like that in the heat of a launch as huge as this, Simon, they have to be going, they've said what? And drag them in, pull them in. There's got to have been lots of boardroom meetings, or at the very least, crisis Zoom calls this week, because yeah, we know Doctor Who's coming back next year, and it's probably coming back the year after as well. But even so, where's the dignity in having having a show like Doctor Who, a high-profile brand, which is a really expensive show to make and to publicise, but that no fucker watches? Where is the dignity in that?
Well, of course, there isn't any. And this is where, as I say, you just wonder what is going on behind closed doors as to what is being said, because they are at the moment still in production on Series 2, aren't they? They're making it now. And so you wonder whether there are, as you say, board meetings, Teams online meetings, talking about this, about, okay, what exactly are you giving us next year, Russell? We need to see what's coming next year, and we need to check that it's going to be decent. You wonder whether a similar kind of thing is being said that was said back in 1985 that you mentioned earlier, Dan, whereby they might be saying, okay, right, you might have to wipe the slate clean of the rest of the scripts that you're doing, and we need to revisit this and work out where we're going wrong with it. It is possible, because for all that we think the BBC might be arrogant, they're not stupid. They're unlike RTD. They are a commercial organisation. Yeah. They have to make this work. They have to turn this around, as you say, Adam. They have got to turn this around somehow, because otherwise one of their biggest brands is down the pan. And they're not going to want to see that. They're not so stupid that they're going to let this go easily.
Julie Gardner said this a couple of weeks ago. Just one moment.
You're right.
Julie Gardner said this a couple of weeks ago, mate. Should I want every person in the world to watch Doctor Who? This is, yeah, and you could say this is hyperbole, but I actually think this is sincere.
No, this is genuine.
I think this is something that, of course, she's not going to get literally everybody in the world, but anybody who has even a passing interest in the show, Matt, whether they're a few oceans away, a continent away, every time zone you could possibly imagine away. The fact that Julie Gardner, the executive producer of that show, wants you to come to this party, to me, this speaks volumes. And, she talks about, obviously, the ambition of Disney+. But that simple initiative to just simply want as many people, Matt, to turn up as possible, this is the right kind of message, isn't it?
Too little, too late.
Well, it's desperate, isn't it? It's optimistic and hopeful without anything to back it up.
Whether
she's ever seen any of the actual episodes that she's about to put out.
Yeah, and why is she on her own? Why is Russell never with her when she makes these comments? And he should be agreeing with her. He's off doing his own little stupid things all the time.
Of course, what she's doing, Matt, I would guess, is she's basically trying to patch up the shit show that Gatwa and RTD did publicity-wise, and she's trying. I wouldn't be in any doubt at all. She's probably fuming behind the scenes, so she's thinking something's got to be done to try and remedy what they did wrong, and she's kind of desperate at that point.
I have been very careful about speaking about this. I don't want to be seen to put the boot into this. I personally, I've said before, I'll say again, I'm quite enjoying this season. I think it's a marked improvement on what's come before. I'm pretty open to what Shooty's doing. I think that it's interesting, the choices he's making, and I think it could actually go. I think there's lots of room to grow with what he's doing. But that aside, I'm not that into it that I can't be objective. From right the way from 1985 to 1989, well, actually, not just to 89, right the way from 85 to 2004. It was a very much an out and proud Doctor Who fan at a time where it was massively unpopular. But I still loved it. I still enjoyed it. So I've got no problem in enjoying something that a lot of other people don't or claim not to. That's fine by me. But it's being objective enough to look at the situation and think, okay, it may be working for me. I love Firefly, for example, that show 20 years ago, the sci-fi western. Loved that. Nobody watched it. It got cancelled after 18 episodes. So I'm used to this. But it's strange it happening with Doctor Who. So I talked about it on social media, and I said how sad it made me. I talked about it a little bit on X, just a short post, and I had contact from various people. A couple of people who are quite, in the elitist bracket of the Doctor Who community reached out and said, these figures are perfectly fine in relation to what's around it. And this kind of disclaimer, this complacency, and I won't name names because that wouldn't be fair. I know this stuff was said in the best of faith because they care about the show as much as I do. But that sort of complacency is silly. It's woolly thinking. The entire, Julie Gardner, bless her heart. I think Julie's great, and I think Russell is very talented. I do love his stuff, but the simple fact of the matter is, for the last 2.5 years, and increasingly so, they've told us and told us and told us how Doctor Who needed to be upscaled. It needed to think bigger, to be bigger and better, to be more ambitious. So when the results come back and they're the same as the viewing figures for Homes Under the Hammer or whatever it is, I think that should count as a fail.
Yeah. Well, and especially when you bear in mind that...
What's the budget an episode now, Simon? We did have those figures. It's gone up
a ridiculous
extremely
amount.
highly.
And one of the things that Davis said was that's why they got into bed with Disney, was to get that extra money to make it the biggest and best thing it could possibly be. And as I say, it's undeniable that these figures are worse than the Chibnall-Whittaker year. We've got to remind ourselves of that. We knew that the Chibnall-Whittaker years were the absolute nadir. They were the depths of Doctor Who. And we could see that. And so they brought Davis back on to rescue it from those depths, those abyssal depths that it had plummeted to. And he's gone below. He's actually slipped below. Apart from the only one episode, Legend of the Sea Devils, all the other Whittaker episodes did better than those first 2 episodes that we've seen so far. This was
I think it's fair to say that these episodes, the 3 that have been on so far, and everything that's been produced from the Star Beast onwards, have been considerably more competent, better put together, better acted than anything Chibnall ever put on screen. But it's the specials ratings were okay, but it seems that the culture around the show is, I don't want to use the word toxic, but I think there's an aroma around the show. You can't label something. You can't label a show as the most PC, the most woke show on British TV. You may get the Guardian journalists and half a dozen really mouthy people on social media who will say that's a good thing. But most people in Britain hate things that are PC. Wokeism is not popular. We're not down with any of this. It all fails. I'm afraid. Go woke, go broke, as much of a cliche that is, and as much as I never use that phrase, but the reason why it winds so many people up, what gets under people's skin so much about that phrase, is because it's fucking true. Mm-hmm. Example after example after example. That's what really drives people nuts. And I don't. Again, when have you ever heard me use that phrase on this show? But it is true, whether it's fair or not. There's lots of talent up on screen in this incarnation of Doctor Who, but nobody's going to be around to see it because they've burnt too many bridges, it seems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've played their hands, certainly, and too much of it, I think, is woke. Not all of it by any means. We have to be clear about this.
There's been very little wokeism in these episodes. I mean, some people argue that the casting of Ncuti Gatwa, which none of us were there, we just have to take their word for it that he was cast because he was the best man in the room. But some people take the presence of Ncuti Gatwa as proof of the wokeism rules. But I would argue that creatively, week to week, we've seen very little identity politics and wokeism, and actually a lot more broader writing, offering up ideas, floating ideas, rather than punching home manifestos. But again, nobody's sticking around to find out.
And the other problem that you've got, Dan, is that because of the rhetoric that Davis and Gatwa have been spouting in the promotional material, even if that isn't seeping into the show as much as it could have done, it's obvious what their attitude is. We've already been told by Gatwa that if the series fails, it's because of racism. We're all racists. So once you come out with that kind of rubbish, it's very difficult to separate that and stop seeing the show as woke. So even if the wokeism isn't in the show itself, the rhetoric that we're getting in our ears is
the culture behind it, the mindset that it's being made in.
It goes in.
Yeah,
it
transmits. Matthew Pounder speculates they need emergency reshoots soon. I don't think that's on the cards. Do you, Adam? I think they're too far into the production process to reshoot. I mean, you'd like to think that maybe because I think season 2 might have actually finished shooting, but maybe they could re-edit some things. I don't know. Tune it up, tune it down. What do you think?
I mean, they probably should do some reshoots, but I don't think there's any chance of that because I think Russell's got the blinkers on. I think he'll
But
just
maybe
allow
for series
to do what he wants
2.
to do.
Yeah.
But maybe for series 2, Adam. Maybe.
I mean,
they
he should. Somebody, like you said, should say to him. But if he's telling you to your face that no producer's going to say no to him, then he's going to plow through with whatever he wants to do.
But I know because I've worked within TV. There is always somebody above you. Even RTD, although he doesn't think there is because his ego is so bloated, there is somebody above him. And when the buck stops, if necessary, the exec producers above him will say, "No, this is not good enough. We are going to have to change this." And it doesn't matter what he says. If they say it's got to be changed, it will have to be changed. He is not the head of Doctor Who, however much you might like to think he is. There are people above him.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, when he turns around and he says, "Oh, if you're not writing this in 2024, then what are you doing?" You know, all this crap that he's trying to peddle. Look, the fact of the matter is, I mean, I didn't have a problem as much with the latest one, except I knew nothing about it going into the actual episode. I try to avoid those little inserts and stuff that they have at the end, and and I was like, okay, so they've got dog collars, yep. And then all of a sudden they start mentioning religions and faith and everything, and I was boiling.
That's a Moffat thing, though, isn't it?
I was boiling by the I was boiling and seething by the end of it. And as someone who is Catholic, I'm a Catholic. I don't practice it like all the time. I don't go to church on Sundays. That's that sort of thing. But
it'd fall in on you, wouldn't it?
Well, I have heard some things about Catholic girls, but I won't go there. But yeah, I mean, but by the end of it, I was just like, how dare you? And I'm seeing this in every single episode so far. It's like, why do this? Why? To put your views across. No one wants it. I just want a damn science fiction show. And I'm not getting that. I'm not getting it. And now it's gone into this realm of fantasy and everything. And I think I don't know about you, but I feel that fantasy isn't so popular on TV. Science fiction has its thing, but no, I mean, you tell me a fantasy show that's doing well. Look at Lord of the Rings, for God's sake. The latest one, the Lord of the Rings.
Arguably, though, the biggest genre show. I know they messed it up at the final hurdle, but Game of Thrones was absolutely massive, a phenomenon, wasn't it? So yeah, I haven't got so much of an issue with that. The British TV ratings, they have all been published. We have overnights, we have consolidated figures. We've now got the lot to look back at in relation to one another and on the series so far. So with just 3 episodes in, we've got the overnight figure there of 2.6 million. For the Space Babies went up to 4.1. With the consolidated figure, the Devil's Cord went up from 2.4 million to 3.9. I mean, it's a little bit of a drop off, but for Boom, that's a big chunk from 2.4 down to pretty much 2 million, isn't it, for the overnight? So just looking at that pattern, it doesn't bode well for whatever's going to get released. This consolidated figure we should get on Monday.
Mm-hmm. No, it's kind of worryingly. It looks like it'll be around about 3.5, 3.6 maybe. And as I say, which means that by the end of the season, we could well be Well, God help us. We surely we can't slip below 3, can we? Surely.
And that's even though Boom has generally been far better received than the earlier 2. I mean, I would also remind people that, that people didn't not watch Space Babies because it was crap.
No.
Because obviously you had to watch it to find out whether it was crap or not.
Correct.
So there was something else, something around the show, around the brand, that meant that people didn't prioritize it. Not just on the night, but the entire bloody week looking at this.
And the truth is, it's always a case that the following week is a kind of a knock-on of the previous week. If they didn't enjoy the previous week's episode, then they're not going to tune in for the next one. I mean, I think it's interesting that because Space Babies and The Devil's Cord were a double bill, it's interesting that The Devil's Cord fell off. Not by much, admittedly, but it did dip, and so it clearly means that Space Babies did not work for the public because less people stayed around to watch episode 2 immediately afterwards. And let's not forget that they did come back by about 7 million for the Eurovision Song Contest. So they just disappeared, and they had their tea doing The Devil's Cord, and that's clearly because Space Babies didn't work for them.
I feel, playing devil's advocate, it's important to acknowledge the fact that 2.5 million, maybe more, less people watched the Eurovision Song Contest this year than the previous year. So figures are falling for everything. But again, at least with the Eurovision Song Contest, which I loathe, I deeply resent that thing. But at least with that, what it has retained is that event TV status. It's kind of be there on the night or the moment is gone.
Yes.
But even that is losing 2.5 plus million people domestically.
Yeah, but nonetheless, it's still just about managing to hold it own. It still goes to show that if you do event TV, it can somehow manage to pull viewers in. And Doctor Who could do this if it had managed to, if it had played its card, its hand correctly with its advertising and its marketing. I'm not in any doubt it could have managed to pull any in. Sorry, Matt.
Matt?
No, sorry, Simon.
No, go for it.
Can I just say that if this was in Australia, if this show was Australian, it would be, with the numbers that it's got, transferred to Australian, this would be cancelled straight away. This wouldn't even make the next week. This would be gone. Recently, I know you guys remember the Gladiators came back in the UK.
Yeah.
It came back at the same time as we brought it back too. It started. It's been on for the last month. It's gone. It's gone completely now.
Oh, okay.
Do you mean it's been axed, or that they took it off midway through the run?
Just lower. People were complaining because there were no more games. It was the same. It looked like it was a repeat of the same game.
It was just like a rerun. It was like a rerun.
And so they were saying, can we have some new games, please? And they didn't listen to them. And it's gone. They've just decided that it's gone. But that's an example of Australian TV. If people don't watch it, they don't have what the viewing figures that they want. It's gone. Yeah. And I don't know why the BBC.
Fair, Matt, over here on commercial television on the ITV network, it does work like that. They bump shows, they change time slots if it's not working, because obviously the people the companies that have bought advertising space in those commercial breaks say, nobody's watching this bloody thing. I'm not going to pay to advertise in this that only half a dozen people and the dog are watching. So I'll pull my advertising unless you do something about this. And so it works here too, but not with the BBC, because they've already got your money, everybody.
I just find it was an extreme precedent to have to make 2 series. I mean, they had so much confidence in this show, didn't they? So much pissing in the wind that they just.
Well, as I understand it, they signed Ncuti Gatwa for 2 seasons. In fact, I think I tell a lie. He's signed for 3, and he may have an option on a 4th. But I believe they would have always have shot them fairly close together. But the deal with Disney being for I think it's 20. I think the deal is for 24 episodes. I think I've read somewhere. I haven't seen that substantiated, but that's the rumor.
So that would be 3 seasons of 8 episodes if they do it 3 years. I mean, I've already said earlier on that I think that it will be it'll be dropped after the next season. If it's not, again, I'll go out on a limb and say I think Gatwa will be dropped. I think they will
be replaced.
Yeah, I think he'll be replaced with series 3.
Do you think they can? But do you think they'll stand to lose the face? Because quite obviously, Jodie Whittaker was flailing very, very early and never recovered. They should really have put that. I didn't feel sorry for her, but I didn't feel sorry for her because the woman was objectionable and insufferable. But professionally, somebody should have pulled her out of that show for the sake of her career.
They should have put her out of her misery and out of our misery as well. They should have done.
I can't believe that her agent didn't step in and say, look, my client is in the wrong role. We think perhaps it could be in the best interests of both for us to part. But nobody did that for quite simply for political reasons, it seemed to me. And here we've got a situation which could fall into the same bracket.
I think it could fall. I think it does sort of fall.
And you know
into the
me,
same
I'm
bracket.
speaking to somebody who likes what Shooty's doing. I do think that he probably is the right man for the role. I just feel he's being mismanaged externally and making a bit of a dick of himself.
I mean, obviously, I feel he's not the right person for the role. Given what I've seen so far, I don't think he's remotely. I think he's huge.
I'm just issuing that disclaimer though, because I don't want people to think that I'm just here firing shots willy-nilly. That I'm being nasty or dismissive. I'm not. I personally like what he's doing, but quite clearly, if it's not going to be working, there's got to be a cut-off point, just as you said, Simon.
And I just wonder whether, yes, you're quite right, Dan. They should have changed things up halfway through the Jodie stuff and admitted themselves that it wasn't working and changed her. But I wonder with this one whether the BBC, once bitten, twice shy. I just wonder whether this time the BBC will say, look, we should have done it through Jodie. We didn't. We're going to have to do it with Gatwa. He is going to have to go, and we're going to have to put somebody in that will.
Because this is Doctor Who's last chance in its modern incarnation. If it goes away this time, that's it. It's going to be 5, 10, maybe longer years before it comes back again.
Yeah, spot on.
But Matt? Don't forget though, there's another party in the role with Disney Plus.
Yes,
they've got to have their say as well because they're obviously they've put in a lot of money into this, a lot in how much into publicity. Gatwa has been the face of of their Doctor Who.
Good point.
And it's just. They have to have some sort of input.
But they will have some input. You're quite right, Matt. But the fact still remains they're going to want to see a success as well. And so they will all of them will be sitting down. They will be analysing this and saying, look, has this worked? Has it not? We've got to remember this will be discussed behind the scenes. There's no two ways about it. This is not going to just never be discussed. They are going to sit around a TV screen on a Zoom meeting and talk about this. And so Disney needed to be a success as well. And so I think they might be the ones that are sort of saying, well, they will look to the BBC and say, what is wrong with this show? Why is this show not working? You've been making
Simon, Disney have their own problems. They announced 27 billion lost. Was it 10 days ago, less than a fortnight ago? This platform is not doing well. It hasn't got anywhere near the engagement or the how can I put the referrals. People say how clunky it is compared to Netflix or Amazon. Adam, it is popular. It does work, but it doesn't. It's not the success that they imagined it would be. It's costing them a lot of money. They're pulling back on the Marvel shows, all that kind of thing. So Disney Plus it's not a bottomless pit of money that they've got.
No, and never underestimate the word of mouth. You were talking about Fallout earlier. I've never played Fallout. I don't know anything about it. And yet I kept hearing and seeing people on Twitter talking about it in a positive light, saying how good it was. So I thought, well, I don't know anything about the show. I better check it out. And, if people are just only saying negative things about the show, and if you strip everything back, take away the comments, take away Russell, take away Shooty in his hot pants, if you strip everything back to the show itself, sorry for that image, but just strip it down to the show itself, mate. Is it a quality program? Now I know you're enjoying it at the minute, Dan, but I would say
that's by the by. Yeah,
but I would say personally, I don't think it, because I've heard Russell talk about it being up there with Stranger Things. Delusional. It's nowhere near the quality of that show. The only thing I'm enjoying about it is Shooty and Millie. I think they've got great chemistry. I know he's not.
Yeah, I do as well,
Simon. But I see the Doctor in him. I think he's definitely got potential. I'm liking him, despite the rubbish he said off camera, which I really I find it quite hard to distinguish the art from the artist. I know Dan doesn't have that problem, but I get a bit. So it's been hard for me after some of the stuff he said. But I like him as the Doctor, I have to admit. And I think Millie is fantastic. I really like her as well. They're the only redeeming features in this series for me at the moment. I thought, they are the only things it's got going for it from these first 3 episodes for me. They're holding it together, a bit like Matt Smith did when he was handed some appalling stories. He was consistently good in it. And I'm getting the same vibe from them.
Let's take a look at some of the comments here in the live chat. We've got, like I said earlier, says Psychic Beats, if it was any other show without the Doctor Who brand, it would be seen as a mediocre show doing low numbers and it would be cancelled. It being Doctor Who is helping it hold. This is probably true to some extent. Aussies don't put up with nonsense, says Matthew Pounder.
You know what I find funny is the fact that we've still got to have merchandise come out for this thing.
Oh, there are action figures and things on the way. I've seen some prototypes as well. I mean, things can get pulped. Connor asks, is there a chance they'll scrap season 2? Now, season 2, it's been filmed. That's coming next year without a shadow of a doubt. And Russell has written a lot of season 3 already. I know he's like a machine, just keeps going. What about the Christmas special, says Melanie Weston? They're going to carry on for the time being, certainly. Chris Chibnall and Russell T Davies have destroyed the show. Chris Chibnall destroyed the show, destroyed the IP. Russell T Davies thought that he was a big enough creative force that he wouldn't have to compromise on the things that are important to him in the here and now to get it back on track. That's where he's been proven. Proven wrong.
I think RTD, unfortunately, is hammering the lid down on the coffin. That's what he's doing. Sadly.
Corvin has also heard it's a 26-episode deal, includes the 4 specials, season 1 and 2 plus a spin-off. Well, the 4 specials that Disney didn't pay for. This is another thing that's out there that you see in a lot of commentators and content creators don't get this. Disney were not involved with the 60th anniversary specials. They came on board after that. So although they were on the platform, it was a different deal that got them shown on the platform. That wasn't part of the deal.
The silly thing is, I mean, do they still have the confidence to believe that the finale and everything is worthwhile putting into British cinemas? Do they really
have to wonder?
Well, I mean, they're still going, aren't they? They're still chugging along.
Again, the problem is, Matt, if this was a deal that was done some while ago, which it will have been, they're kind of committed to it. This isn't something that was agreed yesterday morning. It'll have been in the pipeline for months.
And again, to be honest, with this kind of content in the modern streaming age, things work differently. We were talking earlier on about Fallout, about how I'm quite content to watch it 4 or 5 weeks after people have told me how brilliant it is. Although Doctor Who is special to us and special to Britain and to the Commonwealth, Matt, to Australia and Canada, in the markets that it's been deliberately trying to push into, it simply hasn't got that. It hasn't got that connective tissue to people's very souls, let alone their national identity almost. So it is different there. To them, it's kind of like, to a great many people, it's kind of going to be like Fallout is to me. So if there's good word of mouth, like you were saying, Adam, they'll make a note. You know, when I finish watching this, that, and the other, that Doctor Who's on there. You know, they got the guy with the box and I'll make a mental note to watch that, and they might catch it. But I did want to talk for a little about Disney Plus, because none of us are experts when it comes to this, and I've noted how there's a great many commentators again who have never spoken about Disney Plus before or streaming generally, who would suddenly have you believe that all of a sudden they're experts in this in the last couple of weeks just because Doctor Who's on it. I'm not going to try and sell you on that. I don't think anybody here at Type 40 Live would do either. I don't think any of us can speak from a truly informed place, although there are people, broader commentators, channels and podcasters who do talk on that kind of level, not just about Disney Plus, but about streaming, about the streaming wars, about the culture war, who have plotted figures and know how things trend and the way that Disney schedules. But the truth of the matter is this is now Disney Plus is a totally different product, and its relationship to consumers is completely different to that which we in Britain are used to as consumers, standard license fee payers, or as fans of Doctor Who. I mean, its usage and strategies are very, very different in key ways. So it's light years away from the license fee model, in other words, Simon. The BBC One's been its domestic home for 6 decades. And yeah, it's not rocket science. Eyes on screen still counts, and Lion either goes up or goes down. That's still the truth. But the nature of apps and this kind of programming is different, and that frustrates the hell out of particularly us veteran Doctor Who fans who feel, Adam, we still feel the trauma from the show, from the rug being pulled under the show in '85. So we feel that we need to know that it's going to be okay. And I think that perhaps we've got obsessed, got a little bit entitled with a small e, an entitlement to know every metric from literally anywhere. We demand that Disney Plus tell us this, that, and the other, because the BBC have always had to publish whatever through Barb. Yeah. But again, it's a totally different thing. I'd offer that the fact Disney Plus is an app, and like every other kind of app, whether we're talking about a news app, a weather app that you might have on your phone to check every day, a gambling app or a dating app, apps are designed, whatever it is they're feeding us, they're designed with one thing in mind, primarily to keep us, the user, engaged and on that app for as long as possible by habit and ideally without interruption. It works very, very differently. So they want you to go from one show to another, to have different things clued up. They want this in the average household. They don't want this ever off your screen. So the kids come home, they put on Bluey, they'll binge watch 10 episodes of Bluey without even thinking. Maybe the big sister will come in from college and take over, give me the remote, and they'll watch 4 episodes of something else, something a bit older. You'll get a parent who's waiting for the next season of the Murder in the Building thing, or whatever Disney Plus show is around. Older brothers and sisters who might be into the mall. So that's the idea, to keep the family on the app, and Doctor Who is seen as a building block in that. So you'll go from one to another, and you'll kind of ride it like waves. That's the real difference, I think, Simon. Completely different from broadcast TV. I mean, I suppose back in the 70s, BBC One, they wanted to get you at grandstand for the football results and for you to not touch the button all evening. So you could say that that's similar, but obviously it's very linear. This way of programming isn't. You can have it on different screens in the average house as well.
I mean, the problem is because of the way, as Adam said earlier on, we are constantly being told that the landscape has changed. The landscape of viewing has changed, and it
has up to a point. Yeah,
of course. Oh, it has massively. It's undeniable. You can't argue it. And the difficulty we now have is what can be seen as a success these days. In many ways, the only way you could possibly view a success is maybe to look at a movie at the cinema screens and say, okay, how many people are going to actually watch it? How many people are paying to go through the box office doors to actually watch this film? That's a much clearer indication than screening on television is. It's much, much more nebulous than that for TV. And so it is, I in many ways, I sympathize with this problem, because how do you judge whether Doctor Who is a success or not? Obviously, if it had got 9 million views, we would all be saying, well, clearly it's a success.
It's pretty simple on BBC One how we judge that. Line go up, line go down, eyes on screen.
But it is, but even so, we still have to cut, for all that we've sort of criticised these sort of sub 4 million viewers. we still have to cut it some slack to an extent because the landscape has changed so much. And so in many ways, the only way to judge a success could be, is there a buzz around the show or not? You know, again, we've talked about how back in 2006, well, 2007, 8, 9, for example, when David Tennant was absolutely, you know, Doctor Who was in its imperial phase at that point. It could do no wrong, and the whole world loved it. And so it almost didn't matter how many people were watching it because there just was a buzz about the show. The whole world was talking about it. It was in the media the whole time. And so it was a success. And so in many ways, maybe that's a better judge of success these days than how many people are actually watching it. Do people know about this show? Are people?
I think there's some truth in that.
Trending?
This is it. That's what Google Analytics are for. There are graphs that track what the conversation is around a brand, a person, an event even. Melanie Weston asks, would they carry on if it's a success abroad but not in the UK? Now, again, years ago, not, because it was made with public money. But now the BBC have this thing going on where there's BBC Studio. BBC Studios makes Doctor Who, which isn't. That's the commercial arm. So we are now in a position where I'd argue there's still a cut-off point with the UK audience. But potentially, yes, where we are at the moment, if this show is a success internationally and not domestically, they could feasibly keep making this for quite a few years. So the answer, I believe, is yes. It's just not very dignified.
Well, not only isn't it dignified, Dan, it would... If it was a success overseas and not in the UK, and the BBC were perceived to continue to make it, however much it's BBC Studios, Bad Wolf, Disney, so on and so forth, if the BBC was still being perceived to make a show that was not successful, it would cause them enormous problems with the license fee because it suddenly really calls into question, why is the British license fee payer making paying to make a show that nobody in the UK watches? It would really open up a can of worms. It could literally be the end of the BBC as a license fee payer.
I think you're right on point of principle, because the average license fee payer, they don't care that there's a distinction between arms. They just know what they're paying out and how it looks, what it's perceived to be. Talking about how things are perceived to be, you know, here at Type 40 Live, we don't talk about other content creators. I'm going to make the exception for Who Culture because they're not a content creator. Heretic in the live chat says Who Culture literally won't accept negatives about Disney Plus when fans comment that it's not all good. They don't want to accept it. That's because Who Culture is a corporate thing. It's owned by a mass media corporation. It's made to look like they're a bunch of Doctor Who fans, and they seem like nice people, but it is very, very corporate. It's owned by one company that's owned by another. It's probably connected to, if not Disney, then one of the big studios somewhere along the lines. So that's why it's fakery. It's
I don't know I don't know who they are. Who is Who Culture? I don't know.
They are they're derived from a website called What Culture, is it? And they've got several arms. So there's there's different strands of it, aren't there?
What Culture is games. So, you know, and then they've started doing all these other things. So they're pretty much using it as a franchise culture, you know, so they'll put something at the beginning and then they'll try and do start a channel up. Much like Watch Mojo.
It's really nicely made stuff, isn't it, Matt? Beautifully edited. There's a very pretty girl who fronts the Who Culture stuff.
You know, they're a bit of a mouthpiece for, you know, certain corporate.
And I think they've got Crispy Pro, the YouTuber. I think he works on it as well, part time. He's a nice fella. I've spoken to him a little. He's a nice guy. But generally speaking, you know, I would. It's a very, very corporate thing. Stuff like that has its place. But if you want honest feedback from them, Heretic, you're never going to get it. A pause would be best, says Richard Brooks. Well, you know, Simon's been a long advocate of the pause thing, which I've resisted that so many times. But I'm starting to come around to your way of thinking, Simon. I really am. But none of us none of us can know where Disney's lines in the sand are because we don't know what their expectations are for the brand. We don't know the ins and outs of the deal. We can guess all we like, but the guesswork is always certainly for British fans, tends to be, we reason it in the same way that we would reason a BBC, a standard domestic deal, in a very linear way, and I don't think that's likely to be applicable where Disney are concerned. Obviously, they don't publish figures. The only time they ever publish any kind of figures at all is when something is amazingly popular and mega successful, but they don't do that often until something's been on for quite a long period of time. So all we do have are little graphs and placings, courtesy of websites which do track traffic and engagement in the kind of way that you were talking about, Simon, and with what very little information does get given to us. And I have to say that to my eyes, Doctor Who doesn't look like it's doing too badly at all. So this is the top 10 shows on Disney Plus for May the 11th of 2024. And this, obviously, Doctor Who is nowhere. That is the day that Space Babies and The Devil's Cord and The Church on Ruby Road, because all three of them got repackaged as one again. So Doctor Who nowhere to be seen, and this was shared a lot on social media by some commentators as a sort of, oh gotcha, look, no Doctor Who. But within a day, it did start to change. So we've got, this is on May the 12th. We see, Doctor Who's not in the top 10 movies category, but it is showing not only the top 10 TV shows, it was there in at number 4, above the very popular X-Men 97 series and the Monsters at Work, the Monsters Inc. spin-off thing, but below, perennial shows like The Simpsons and Mickey Mouse's Clubhouse and Bluey. That block of shows, they are the bread and butter of the Disney Plus app. As I say, if you've got a family, you've got kids or kids in your immediate family, you'll know how popular those top 2 shows are. The Simpsons is always floating up and down there. In the top 10 overall as well, there's Doctor Who at number 5, the second day in. That includes the Moana movie. And again, above Wish, a relatively recent Disney film. And in the time in between, throughout that first week, it sort of fluctuated. So sometimes it was at 7, sometimes it was 8. But in the chart in America, and I think we have to accept that even though this is a global streaming platform, Matt, I think we'd all agree that very, very clearly that if it's not successful in America, then it'll be seen as a dead duck for Disney Plus, won't it? I would argue that the fact that it's sort of hovering around this mark for anywhere between 5 and 6 days after it drops is actually pretty decent. What do you think?
See, I think that the Disney Plus would be more that they. I know that they're an American-based company, okay, but I think this is more global ratings than anything. This is like the top of for worldwide for Disney Plus. I don't think that this is America. I mean,
but they're the biggest market, though, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, yes, very much so. But I don't know. I really think that it's possible that they're looking at it as it's
more holistically than that.
Watching, because
I would imagine they are.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. It's hard to tell, and this is the thing, because I just don't know what's real and what's not anymore as far as what people are telling me.
I mean, sadly,
corporations,
Sadly, this is all we've got. So this is from the Flix Patrol website, which publish all these stats across Amazon, Netflix, Disney Plus, every form of app. And I think we'd all have loved for it to have blazed its way to the number 1 slot, Adam. And again, there are people out there commentating in this space who are calling Doctor Who, this new Doctor Who, a failure on Disney Plus because it isn't at number 1. And it's sat behind, it's sat behind Bluey, a kids show. Bluey is a phenomena. And again, I've raised 6 kids. I know I keep saying this, but for most of the day, the kids are the ones who rule the remote control in the average family. I would imagine that's exactly the same in American homes, just as it is in Britain.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of it is, in many ways, it will be interesting to see. Well, it'll be critical to see what Doctor Who is doing in another 3-4 weeks' time in Disney Plus.
Absolutely.
Will it still be in the top 10? Will it still be in the top 5? Whatever.
Because obviously, Simon, this is the state of play where there's just 3 episodes. There's frigging hundreds of The Simpsons, because that's what it is. It's not one title. That's a block of shows. So that's all 2,000 episodes of The Simpsons, all 100, 200 episodes of Bluey, and a handful of episodes of Doctor Who. So what they want is for it to remain in that place all week until the next one drops, and to just consistency is what counts on these apps, because as long as it's consistent, it's pulling its weight and it's fulfilling its role of keeping people on the app.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it might be that we never actually truly understand how well it's done or not done on Disney Plus. I think we'll find out basically if it stays on Disney Plus, if season 2 screens on Disney Plus and 3 and so on and so forth, or if it gets dropped, it clearly didn't do well, and that'll be the indication. I think, simple as that.
It'd be nice to know what their expectations are. I mean, that would be I would say they'll definitely want it to build as the episodes accumulate, Adam. And ideally to have that extended life as well, like the fallout effect, where people keep saying, did you watch Doctor Who over the summer? Well, the nights are drawing in now. Maybe you should watch it now. It might be a good show to watch at winter. If it's always on the app, then they're not going to take it down come September. So maybe they'll look depending on their expectations. Maybe they'll look at the end of the year and think, well, okay, this launched well, but it's consistently, even if it's hovering in the top 20, 30, for all I know, that could be in line with expectations. None of us have any idea.
I would just like to hear people talking about it. And when I say talking about it, I mean talking about the stories. I just never hear anybody talk about the stories anymore. We talk about shows from the classic era, like,
Robots of Death.
But we talk about the stories and the characters, and all I hear these days about Doctor Who is people are either not talking about it, or if they are, it's never anything positive. So this is the first time I've seen those Disney Plus charts, Dan. So that's quite interesting, actually. It's much better than I had been led to believe, because they don't release figures. So that is quite positive. But as long as it sustains it, as long as people don't watch it.
I think that's the truth. I think it's sustaining consistency would be what I would imagine they would want, based solely on what I know, what little I know about how apps work. I've worked with people who design apps, and I just stare blankly while they explain that to me. But some of it sort of eventually goes in. And when I think about how I use apps and how I've seen children in my family use those apps in particular, I think, okay, that does make some sort of sense. Babette Bombshell says, I'm weary of doctors who are intended to be sexy and hip. The best thing that could happen to Doctor Who right now would be to cast an older Doctor and return to horror. It feels self-satisfied and cutesy. I agree with you about the cutesy. I don't like the cutesy stuff. I quite like the sexy.
Well, I would also agree that it does need an older Doctor, and it does need to return to horror. You think back to the classic years of when Doctor Who was at its peak, and it was in the horror years. It's as simple as that.
We've got Scottish Davros Daniel in the chat who says Disney kills everything it touches.
It seems to at the moment. It has to be
Touch
said.
of death.
It's not doing. It hasn't got a good track record. Let's just say that.
Like Darth Vader's grip. This is what I imagine the boardroom at Disney Plus to look like. That a bit like that.
Yes.
So, what is this Bluey of which you speak? that kind of thing. Yeah. Matthew Panda asks, wasn't it beaten by Desperate Housewives? Again, this is the point. This is one of those perennial shows. You may scoff, but a show that's 20 years old, that was on for like 8, 9, 10 years, or Grey's Anatomy, which I think is still on, hundreds of episodes of shows that people love. It doesn't matter whether they're to your tastes, to my tastes. The fact that people continue to find those shows, that's what keeps people on these apps. And I think for us to say, oh, well, you got beaten by this, that, and the other, that's us being kind of snooty about shows that aren't for us. If you follow me.
Yes. I know you're absolutely right, Dan. As I say, it's almost unfair to sort of compare it to other shows. Doctor Who, by its very nature, is unique, and so you can obviously write an episode of Grey's Anatomy and produce an episode of Grey's Anatomy far quicker and easier and cheaper than you can make an episode of Doctor Who. It's a very bespoke thing, and it needs very, very careful handling. So it's really difficult to compare Doctor Who to pretty much anything else on television, which is one of the reasons why we love it and one of the reasons why it's still so popular, which is why it's just so heartbreaking to see such terrible figures that it's just not working for the public. It's as simple as that.
But for me, they're well deserved. Those figures are well deserved.
No, I agree.
Yeah, they've asked for it. Dan, have you heard anything about the spin-offs? Like, because I'm thinking if the main show itself can only get these viewing figures, what on earth are the spin-offs going to get?
Well, I believe that all talk of spin-offs up to now, I think they've probably got a couple of things conceptually worked out. I think that one of them is probably quite close to being announced as soon as they get certain bits of data fall into place. One of them could be, the lights on amber rather than on green. So I think that's probably quite likely. But I don't think that this plan to expand it in the way that Russell wants, I think it's feasible with Doctor Who as an intellectual property, but I think it's nowhere near as advanced as Russell would have us believe. I think he's trying to inspire us in the same way that he inspired us in that Doctor Who magazine article about 4 or 5 years before it came back, where he talked about how, he'd love to see every kid in the playground with a toy sonic screwdriver and all that. I think it's a similar aspect of him that we're seeing at work there.
But everything
no, heaven knows.
Everything seems to have fallen out of sync, because like when the Russell come back, we were getting like announcements for the sonic screwdriver, and the very next day the sonic screwdriver was available to buy as a toy, and I thought, blimey, Russell's really got everything back in sync again with the show. So I expected the figures to be released now with the show out, and they're talking about the meat plush. I'm like, well, that's been and gone. I mean,
that should have been out of Christmas.
That should have been out of Christmas. So everything seems to have fallen out of sync. Where are the spin-offs? Where's the merch? It's like it's all become fragmented again.
This is the thing. They're relying on us. Sorry, Simon.
No, sorry. Go on. I was just going to say. I think it just gives an indication that there is a degree of disarray behind the scenes, and I think possibly there was talk about the spin-offs, clearly, because things were said about possible spin-offs, and I suspect that maybe they were just holding fire on them to just see whether Doctor Who worked or not. And I would say that given what we're now seeing, I think it's possible, if not likely, that we might not get any spin-offs at all this year. I think that is possible because there's nothing to spin off from at the moment. There is no energy to spin off from. Spin-off literally, implies that something is going well and something is going to come off from it. You can't do that.
Imagine a series all based around Maestro. My God. Heretic in the live chat says, didn't Russell T Davies say in the latest DWM, which was published today, I've got it behind me, I haven't even opened it yet, apparently he's writing from the set of the new spin-off. I don't know. So obviously, if that's in DWM, which was published today, then please, somebody co-sign on that for us. I mean, again, I try not to be too negative and too condemning of this. This is what the chart looks like. This is the British chart. This was the week of launch. So Doctor Who sat at numbers 10 and 12 there in the listings. This is the British TV chart, the 4-screen dashboard. So Eurovision is right there at the top, Simon, with 7 million, and Doctor Who sat there at number 10. So even though we're shocked by all of these figures, the overnights and the consolidated figures, it's still more than some episodes of EastEnders and Emmerdale. There's no Coronation Street under it, but Have I Got News for You is under it, which seems to, they make 4 series of that every single year. So that's there. Gogglebox, which, that's on a minor channel on Channel 4. But when you look at the shows that it's above, as disappointed as we are, and I think and don't get me wrong, this isn't me this is me opening the cope in any way. The figures are disappointing. There's no way of getting around it. But the landscape has changed quite a lot. You look at the shows that are underneath Doctor Who. MasterChef's there. The Responder, their big Sunday night drama that's very popular. Again, it's a post-Watershed show, obviously, but some Watershed shows do very well, like Line of Duty. So I was quite surprised to see Doctor Who above some of these shows. But even so, its ambitions, the BBC's ambitions for it, had to be higher than the figures that we've got.
Oh yeah.
And the problem is that we've got to bear in mind with all those shows that you've just talked about, Dan. Again, it's what I was saying a minute ago. Those are cheap, easy shows to make. EastEnders is not cheap, of course it isn't. But you know what I'm saying. In comparison,
it's made a quicker rotation.
Correct. It's literally just churning out of a machine. So per 30 minutes of airtime, the actual cost of it is drastically less than Doctor Who. So the problem is, for the success of Doctor Who, you just need it to be doing a lot better than those shows for them to want to keep it going, because there will come a point where they are the same as they did in 85, just as you talked about, Dan. There will come a point where they're just saying it's just too expensive for us to make this show that's not getting as many viewers as certain episodes of EastEnders or MasterChef.
Yeah.
They just won't bother. It doesn't really matter whether we want it to or whether the viewing figures are okay. They've got to be better than okay. It just won't. They won't continue.
Because EastEnders is a show. EastEnders is a show that people do still habitually watch. But Doctor Who isn't. It's an international, it's a global IP, and therefore I wouldn't say it's inconsequential, the things that are underneath it, but expectations are going to be different. So, I mean, for example, we talk a little bit about how the only Doctor Who figures that were worse were for later Sylvester McCoy stories. The Battlefield Part 1 got 3.1 million, but back then, that episode of Doctor Who was number 60 in the charts that week.
But it's odd.
Doctor Who, these episodes of Doctor Who are number 10 and 12 in the charts.
Yeah.
It's 35 years is a long time.
It's difficult because, I mean, even the Tom Baker years didn't get into like the top 50 kind of thing, you know.
Really?
Yeah, Doctor Who very rarely got into the top 20. However popular it was, you could remember it was a golden era of television in those days. Everything was getting like 20 million viewers. So Doctor Who getting 9 and 10, although it was hugely popular, it still didn't scrape remotely into the top 10. So it's a different landscape, as we've said.
A lot of people watching us here across YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and on X. Thank you, everybody, for your time, your indulgence, and all these fabulous comments, including John Yulden there, who says, I'm really looking forward to picking up my Space Baby figure. I want a play set. I want Teletubby style. I want the space station and all the little babies in their pushchairs rolling around there. One with a flamethrower, maybe. Oh, that could be pretty good. You know? I'd love that.
Remote control ones, Dan. Remote control Space Baby toys.
Yeah, Eric action figure. Totally down for that. Make it happen, Russell T. Davies. Make it happen. Just for me, mate. Just for me.
Yep.
I love that. Oh God, yeah. Oh, yeah, review of Space Babies coming up. We've already recorded it. The reviews are on the way, everybody. We've got Dr. On Call Stephen Noonan in the live chat. Hello, mate.
Hello,
says
Stephen.
never mind this far-fetched nonsense. Bring back Dixon of Doc Green and Gideon's Way. When coppers were coppers, Stephen, give you a clip round the ear.
Even at all.
Clip round the ear. Clip round the ear. I think the spin-off announcements will happen after the finale, says Andrew. I hope so. But the thing is, unless things change drastically, they really have to change the perception of the show as well as the ratings. I think the perception of the show probably more than the ratings, actually, but only marginally. Something has to change. Otherwise, whatever they announce, people are just going to go, and so what? Who's going to watch that? You know, and you don't want that. They've got to pull something out the bag. Really, they can't afford another week like this either with the ratings or the publicity, and certainly not both. 73 Yards has to be absolutely outstanding this coming Saturday, and they cannot afford another week of those ratings going down, because the publicity will be shockingly bad. Who in their right mind is going to put any money? Says Marine Boy. What for? Lord Thoth says, Dan tries to be optimistic. I try to be fair, Lord Thoth. I think that's different to being... I am inherently, naturally an optimist. I'd like to think I am. But I'm trying to be objective. I'm trying to be fair. And to keep things in perspective. That's very much how I view my role here
as well, aren't we? We are trying to be balanced here.
Yeah, that's what we've always tried to do. I wish Eurovision was on every week, says Simon Anthony. I thought he'd gone to bed.
Wow. He got back up again. He couldn't sleep, so he got back up to carry on watching us. Hello, Simon.
We've got someone in the live chat called Adam, the Ultimate Whovian.
Hey,
Adam.
It's my mate. All right, Ad.
Is it? That's a brilliant name, Ad. Oh, here he is. Where are you? Adam, the Ultimate Whovian, says, give us Nymons in the spin-off. I'd be down for that, Simon.
Can you imagine?
Let's be honest. Well, the way I see it, no, it's not Mandrels. But it's near enough.
But can you imagine, Dan? We could actually have a spin-off, Mandrels versus Nymons. Can you imagine that?
Oh, my God. Yes,
I'll give you that one, Russell. Russell, you can have that one. There you go. Nymons versus Mandrels.
See, Russell, I've got a semi thinking about that. give the people what they want. Yeah, that's what we need. Thank you, Adam, the Ultimate Whovian. Corwin Morris says, Canwin, so I do apologise. Carwin Morris says, I'd be hesitant if they did a unit show. The last thing I want is a show about the relationships of gay soldiers. A unit show. I don't know why I find that so. We had dog soldiers earlier on when we talk about Sean Pertwee. Now we talk about gay soldiers.
Yeah, one and the same thing.
A unit show by a 2006 Russell T Davies would be great, but these days, oof. Well, put it in the suggestion box and give it to them by all means.
Send it up to Russell.
I think we've probably, I think that's probably that topic sorted, at least for now. The ratings of Doctor Who, they confound and frustrate and torment us, don't they? Throughout the decades, it's all Michael Grade's fault. And although we all imagined that things, Doctor Who would blaze black to glory, didn't we? Under its new old branding and a statement of intent to take the stage back and to go global, to give it all a slap down and a spruce up. Ultimately, that does seem to be faltering. As much as I personally am quite enjoying it, that does seem to be faltering, and it is a sad state of affairs. There's a few weeks left to go. Obviously, I wouldn't say that anything can happen, but I am an optimist, and who knows? BBC, iPlayer, and Disney Plus are the places to find Doctor Who. Whether you watch it on the night over the weekend, or whether you've sort of got it in the watch list there, I'll get to it in a couple of weeks list, because we have these playlists, don't we? Particularly on Netflix, you can add something to it and you sort of get round to it, and then they send you those little notices saying we're about to take it off, and you go, oh, bugger. But it's similar. This is how we use platforms. This is how we use apps. It's a reality of the time that we're living in. But what we want to know from you is, what do you think of all this bollocks? Does any of it make any sense whatsoever? Do you even care anymore? Are the ratings, are they completely insignificant, unimportant? We shouldn't lose any sleep over it? Or is this the klaxon going off, the bell of doom for all new Doctor Who, for all Doctor Who for that matter? Let us know in the comments section what you think. I mean, I will remind you, there is still a few weeks left of this season. Perhaps it's not all over just yet. Where next? Yeah, let's wrap it up. Are we taking these words from the Doctor himself? Let those ring in your ears for just a little while longer.
Yeah, that's such a lovely quote. It's still one of the absolute best, isn't it? It's funny. You get some of the old dialogue from the old classic show just still resonates and rings down through the decades. And I look at modern Who and I can't remember a single line from one of the episodes I've seen so far this year.
You'll be putting a caption up in 5 years saying, "Give me the loving."
Oh, stop it! You had to do it, didn't you? Flip it, mate.
He went into a phone box with a mobile phone. They phoned it was raining. It was pouring the rain, that's why. So I went in there to get so went into a phone box and you had a mobile.
To cry in private.
I was hoping it was a TARDIS. Swat. I know, crap.
Yes, talking about words that are ringing in your ears. As ever, we're going to round things off with one last very quick look at the view screen. Our regular eye into the temporal schism in search of the prettiest pictures from out there in the Hooniverse. So we like to look at fan art, whether it's digital art or traditional art, whether it's cosplay or crafting. We want it all here at Type 40 Live. We can throw it up on the screen and get people going, oh, look at that. Isn't that sweet? I'd like one just like that. We want it all up on the view screen. So if you know a fan artist or you are a fan artist and you want to get your work up on the screen, get in touch with us. We want to have your websites. We want your Instagram accounts or your DeviantArt page. If you put them up on X, that's fine too. We just want to see all of your wares. So get in touch with Type 40 Live to show us some of that. I thought we'd take a look at this first. This is from Blue Fruity, which it sounds like one of Russell's. That does sound a lot. I'm never going to be able to hear that now without thinking of one of Russell's mates that he likes to hang around with, you know? Blue Fruity. It's getting late, everybody. The jokes are going to get broader. But Blue Fruity is, in fact, a fabulous Doctor Who fan artist, and they've created this latest piece in tribute to Boom, the episode that aired last weekend. And I kind of like this, particularly the little tear in the Doctor's eye.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, it's a good one. Ruby doesn't look very confident holding that gun, and I can't say I blame her, Simon.
Yeah. It's gosh, isn't it? It's a lovely piece of artwork. I just still can't see Doctor Who. It's funny.
You're not moved, are you?
No,
it does look like.
I don't know. It just looks more like a kind of cartoon that I'd see on Sky One.
And also, they've made him
a piece of artwork. It's cracking.
Doctor Guy.
They've made him more heroic.
Doctor Guy. Spot on, Dan. That's what it is. Doctor Guy. Brilliant. Yeah, Doctor Guy.
Matt.
Oh, they just made him more heroic than he actually is in the episode, sort of thing. You look like,
That's
he
sort
just
of
looks really determined and everything, and it's no.
Which actually he doesn't look in the show particularly.
He looks like he's actually holding in his fart more than anything.
He's got clenched fists, if you know. He's not actually stood on the mine, which is curious. But I did wonder about this, Matthew Pounder. That does look like a giant white fart cloud behind him, but I kind of like that. Makes me laugh. But I think the thing I like best about this is the fact that Blue Fruity has included that fabulous sequence where the robots are seen in the sky clearing away the mist and the smoke from the battleground. I mean, some of the effects in that episode were absolutely superb, and I do like Blue Fruity's work generally on the Doctor Guy range. Fabulous stuff. Of course, time will tell whether this is seen as a memorable episode or not, won't it, Adam?
Yeah. I like that artwork, by the way. I think that's really, really nice piece of art. But as for the episode itself, RTD says we're going to be talking about it for years. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's what he reckons. It's what he said. Oh,
he did say that, yeah. He says that every week. He said that about this one. No. It's the scariest monster ever this week.
Yeah. This one this weekend is the best one he's ever written.
Yeah.
So what's episode 5? Is that going to be the best one he's ever worked on? I mean, when does the hyperbole end?
Never, ever. A bit like this live stream, really. But we're going to end where we started. It's the 28th anniversary of Doctor Who the movie, which starred Paul McGann, if you remember, and Daphne Ashbrook, Eric Robertson, Yiji So, and lots of other people sort of running around in the middle of the night in San Francisco, wasn't it? But it was Canada, really. It was Vancouver, really. They were having a blast, even in the pitch black, and there was ambulances and motorbikes and all sorts of stuff. Very evocative episode of Doctor Who, very evocative TV movie, and a great, very exciting time to be a Doctor Who fan, even if just for a fortnight. It still inspires, obviously, a lot of conversation and art artwork now, including this one by Kellogg, which I thought was the ideal piece to finish off with there to bring us full circle.
Ooh, look at that.
There's a lot going on in there, Simon.
Yeah, there is a lot going on in there, isn't there? Absolutely love that, though. I can't work out what is the why is there a giant octopus around the. I don't remember that in the movie.
I'm going to put that down to wishful thinking on the part of Kellogg. Maybe that's what it needed.
Was it? Was there some vague mention? Did I miss the line that said about that there was a giant octopus trying to pull down the Golden Gate Bridge? Doesn't matter. Lovely piece of artwork. Fabulous.
Maybe it's in the book. Maybe Gary Russell. Gary, did you put it in the book, mate? I can't remember.
It's a great piece of artwork.
Who's the person in the bubble?
I can't. Oh, that looks like. No, that could be.
Finish thing.
Oh,
it could be. I mean, I just saw the Golden Gate Bridge. No, I don't know who that is. Actually, I'd be lying if I said
obviously one of his companions.
Is it Charlie Pollard from the?
Oh, is it the dude? I think it's the dude who he predicts his future. The guy who works at the Beryllium clock, and he says, "Oh, you want to take this question on your exam paper. Don't be a silly bollocks, all that kind of stuff." Was that him?
Could be.
Wow, that's nice, says Tony L.
Did he check his
superb
sonic
stuff, says
screwdriver
Rob
before he did
Alexander. I don't know. Maybe.
That was a shot at Trudy. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. Cosmic Calamari says Retro Doc Gary Akers. Tony Farrell, Big T likes that. Never mind Big Squid. Big T says it's okay, so it's all right by us. It's a homage to It Came From Beneath the Sea, suggests Stephen Braddock. You could be right. A perfect homage to the Doctor Who the movie from 1996. All our hopes and memories from that very exciting time, the exciting and frustrating time. As ever, if you are a fan artist or you know a fan artist and you'd like to get their work up on our screen, your work up on the screen, then please do just get in touch with us here inside our TARDIS. You can do that through our social media, Instagram and X at Type40 Doctor Who. We're waiting, we're listening. You can drop us a comment too if you like here, just down there. Yep, that's it. There. Yep. And send us their way or them our way. Either way works fine by us. Cut out the middleman if you like. Go straight to the Type 40 Facebook group and join up. Plaster their work and anything else you like within reason. Keep it clean. Over the wall. Now, I'm not saying that all four of these particular guys are members of the Type 40 Facebook group, but the only way you'll find out for certain is if you go over to Facebook and type Type 40 into the search field and find out for yourself by joining up. Wow, what a live stream. Sylvester. Yeah. Wonderful stuff. Doctor Who's back on the TV this coming Saturday, 6:50. On BBC One for dinosaurs of a particular vintage who insist on watching it as God intended, as scheduled. 6:50 there, or you can get it on the iPlayer from midnight the night before, and on Disney Plus everywhere else too. This is the one that Russell T Davies says is going to scare the shit out of you. We'll find out in a few days whether it's more hyperbole or whether he's right or not. I think, it's we can hope. What are your hope levels up to at the moment now, Adam, after 3 hours of hanging out with us again?
I am looking forward to coming in from the pub tomorrow night, half cut, and switching this on at midnight. Yeah, I hope it is.
Really? Are you going to sit up till midnight for it?
I might do. I've got the house to myself, so I might.
Wow.
Or I might just fall asleep on the sofa and watch it in the morning.
Live it up, buddy. Live it up.
Anything could happen, Simon.
Wow.
And for
you
the people
live on the edge, don't you? Live on the edge.
Live on the edge of the sofa.
we appreciate your company as always, and a real novelty to have you on in the same time zone as well. But for people who don't know, where else can they hear you? Tell them about the podcast. Tell them about your social media as well, Adam.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I mean, Geeks Handbag is my YouTube channel. I've been working really hard on a video, which probably hardly anyone's going to watch, but I'm really proud of it.
We'll watch it.
So, yeah, please do. It's about Doctor Who books. So maybe people will be like, oh. But anyway, please watch that because I've put a lot of work into it. And also, I do a podcast which goes out weekly most of the time called the Big Blue Box Podcast. And we've been reviewing all the new episodes. So, yeah, do check that out as well.
So you've pulled your fingers out and reviewed them a lot quicker than we have.
Well,
You
you
go.
say that. Gary is off. What day is it? Yeah, he's off. Yeah, I don't think we can record to next week, but we'll catch up somehow.
We have to try and drag Gary onto one of the shows one time.
Yeah, definitely get him on. Definitely
Yeah,
get
well,
him on.
yeah.
Although you'll
Even
never
if we-
keep him up. You'll never keep him up this late. I'm not joking. I've done some evening recordings with Gary, and he has to be done by 9 o'clock sharp.
Wow.
We can always send him some very,
hour.
very hard narcotics and see if that'll sort him out. Yes.
Get him on there.
Yes, thank you again for your company, Adam. I hope I hope we managed to get you again before you fly off. Heaven knows where you're going to be next. I never know which continent you're going to be on, but I'm just glad we got you for the last few hours, and we can get into what you're thinking about the all new era, because it's been so long coming, and I know you were looking forward to it, and you were hopeful as we were for what was to come, and who knows, maybe it'll all pull back around. Matt is hiding his face in shame. You're the only real life time traveller here, of course, Matt. So it's already Friday for you. What's it looking like, mate? Any news? What have we got to look forward to?
It's looking nice, and
Yeah.
Can I do a bit of self promotion?
Please do.
So I have a new video up on my.
It's not the
channel.
OnlyFans, is it?
No, I don't.
Okay, carry
do
on.
That.
Carry on.
Not that I'm putting it on you.
Yes, you have a YouTube channel.
Yes, so I have a YouTube channel, Matt Pot. Please check it out. I've just put out a video about the last 3 episodes of Doctor Who and my feelings about it. So check that out, and so that's pretty much what I wanted to say. So thank you very much.
So remind them what it's called again. What's the name of the channel?
Matt Pot. It's named
This is
after
what
me.
I
Come on.
This is what I love about the Aussies. No nonsense, no fats.
I'm like a Nakudi. It's all about me. Come on.
I'm searching for you now, Matt. As we speak, I'm searching for you, Matt Pot. Is it double T? Yeah. That's fine.
Yes.
All
no
about me.
S.
All about me.
Well,
He says all about me.
Is this
All about you.
Lack of faith. Is this your video? Lack of faith.
I'm going to touch grass. I won't be able to live that down.
Everybody in the live chat there, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X, some fabulous comments, some insight. I think people have been venting a little. That's fine too. We're all friends together here at Type 40 Live. Drop us a comment too on any of this nonsense that we've gone through. Of course, there's been all the talk of the ratings, wasn't there? There was a slight preview of 73 yards. We're shooting in the dark, really, aren't we? But the fact is, it doesn't really matter what we say. It's what Russell T Davies says, and if he can possibly live up to it. So let us know what you think of that. We mentioned, Will Hadcroft's new audio. That's on the way. We'll come back to that, I'm sure, at a later date. Sean Pertwee in the Doctor Who finale. Is that likely? Is that going to be something that could happen? I don't know. Let us know what you think in the comments section as well, and we'll get back to you. Some fabulous, fabulous comments. Thank you, everybody. Simon, kept you up really, really late, mate.
Way past my bedtime.
We'll be back for more. We're back for more next week, no doubt. But thank you for your company as always.
You're very, very welcome, and my grass as well. And we've got to wish a very, very happy birthday to Vanessa, who is in the chat. She's still there, she's in the chat, and happy birthday to Vanessa! Woohoo! I'm waiting my grass at you, Vanessa.
I didn't know it was Vanessa's birthday. I knew she was here, but I didn't know it was your birthday. A very happy birthday to the fabulous Vanessa. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for the time you've spent modding for us. And we do hope you've had a lovely birthday with your kith and kin there, and many happy returns. Yes, and us for last God knows how long. But the beauty of it is that we haven't ruined her day, you see, 'cause it's far earlier in the day for Vanessa on her birthday. So it's she can pull it back around. Talking of pulling it back around, join us again next time for more rambling and rattling, ranting and raving through space and time on the next Type 40 Live. The halfway mark is ahead this very weekend, halfway into all new Doctor Who Season 1. Heaven knows what we'll be talking about next week, but I think it's almost certainly going to be a lot of fun. That's pretty much guaranteed. And we always have the time if you have the space here at Type 40 Live. That's it for this one. Blazing our way back up the vortex. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.